The jury is deliberating right now. However, by the time I'm done editing this video and putting it out, we might already have a verdict. It might be a quick verdict. Oh no, they are done deliberating. Wow.
Is guilty of first-degree murder. And it is signed and dated by...
Today was closing arguments, and we sure had some very interesting moments. Probably one of the most wildest closing arguments I've seen in a while.
I mean, she's covered in powdered donuts. Don't get me wrong.
And I know at some point when we were putting on evidence, you all were looking probably at me like, what are you doing? Who cares?
Or ever. Oh, and then a lot of us are wondering, is Wendy next?
You may be sitting in that jury room thinking, well, Charlie did it, and it sure looks like Wendy did it.
Today in the trial, we start off with a very surprising decision from the defense team. They decided to drop the lesser included in the charges. So no second-degree murder, no manslaughter. These are the lesser included. Typically, sometimes if you have the lesser included in there, the jury will debate more because it's like, okay, well, instead of going after first-degree murder, what if we agreed on second-degree murder? Oh, maybe not second-degree murder. What about manslaughter? So the more options you give, the more there is for them to debate about. That's why I'm thinking maybe we'll have a quick deliberation. I think that makes a job easier for the jury. And if I was the state and if I was confident that we got her on first degree, it's like, okay, let's do it.
Adelson, you understand that lesser included crimes are something that is available depending on what is charged as a crime.
I understand that.
Do you also understand as well, if you waive your ability for the jury to make this finding, they can only make a finding as to what is charged first-degree murder?
Yes, that's correct, Your Honor.
In consulting with your attorneys, you understand the strategy of waiving all lesser-included crimes?
I do, Your Honor.
Is there anything that you need to consult with them further about concerning this matter?
No, there is, Your Honor.
I was thinking like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. But maybe the defense thinks that the state hasn't done a good job at proving first-degree murder, or because there's a lot of circumstantial evidence. For example, the jury might be like, okay, well, Donna wasn't holding a smoking gun. Donna wasn't on surveillance tape talking about how she wanted to murder Dan Markel or how she did it. Donna's an old lady. Can we actually convict her with first-degree murder when we don't have the direct evidence? Now, the state's response to that was the direct evidence was that after the bump happened, she calls up Charlie and she says it involves the two of us, probably the two of us. And the TV's about 5, you know, that's code word. Everything else about Donna, most of it's just circumstantial evidence. It just looks really, really, really bad. But she did write the checks to Katie for 2 years. She seems like the type of person who's domineering. She was in charge of the finances. She was running the dental institute for what, 20, 30 years when Harvey had it. At some point, Harvey took over the dental institute and purchased it back from Charlie back in 2015. And Donna was still writing the checks. And then, you know, Katie saying that, oh, well, you know, Donna washed the money. Donna brought the money. Oh boy. And then the Vietnam stuff makes her look really bad. But I guess it does make sense because the lesser included, maybe they're like 15 to 25 years. And because Donna is, how old is she again? I forgot how old she is. Is she in her either mid 60s or maybe she's like, no, I think she's in her 70s now, like early 70s. So for Donna, if she were to get 15 years, 25 years, she's already going to be really, really old. But then I'm thinking like, okay, well, let's say she gets manslaughter. Let's say that's 15 years. Is there a way that she can get out early on good behavior, right? Like, because I was thinking about like the manslaughter with Sarah Boone. They offered her, I think it was manslaughter, plea deal. And it was like 15 years or something like that. But I don't know. Very, very interesting here. Very interesting. So it's like all or nothing. So you either get me on first-degree murder, or you don't get me at all. But again, she's also being charged with first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, and then solicitation to commit first-degree murder. Whew. Oh man, this is quite an exciting day. I heard that when the jury deliberates, they get once more each. I heard that it has to be white chocolate. It's quite gross. White chocolate's not even chocolate. Now, I noticed something. Donna and I were matching. Should I go change my shirt? She copied my outfit, okay? I did it first. Before they start the closing arguments, the judge did say that there is a stipulation made by the defense and the state means that they agree on a certain fact. And that fact is that Patricia Byrd was not listed by the current or the previous defense counsel in this case. So Georgia Kappelman is doing the closing arguments. Sarah Dugan did the opening statements. Georgia starts off with letting the jury know who Dan Markel was.
He's the victim in this case. A son, a brother, a colleague, a mentor, a professor, a friend, but most of all, a father, an Abba, a dad, a dedicated and loving father whose downfall was brought about by the fact that his number one priority was maximizing his time with those little boys in the wake of a bitter divorce from their mother.
I'm really glad that Georgia gets to this part really quickly of the contentious part, because the defense's major argument through their witnesses was that, one, Donna wasn't trying to go to Vietnam to go, to escape. She was going for a vacation. Secondly, the divorce, it wasn't contentious. Let's dispel that right now.
Defense called witnesses to come in here and give you an expert opinion that his divorce and the subsequent litigation was not contentious. Not contentious to whom? It was contentious to Dan Markel. It was contentious to Wendi Adelson. And it was contentious to this defendant.
Now, in the defense's opening statement, she talks about what a great person Danny was. She calls him Danny.
He was an amazing professor. He was very well educated. He had 2 degrees, I think, from Harvard, one of them from law school there. He was a professor. He had students. He was very well respected by his peers, his colleagues.
And then after telling you what a great guy Dan Markel was in opening statements, they called witnesses to tell you what a pain in the butt he was. And he was a pain in the butt to those people, those awful lawyers that can't even admit that divorces are emotionally charged. He was a real person who cared passionately about every scrap of paper in that divorce file. He wasn't some bumbling idiot. He was a Harvard-educated law professor. And yeah, he was making it as difficult as possible for this defendant to get her non-negotiable, which just also happened to be Dan Markel's non-negotiable, those 2 little boys. The defendants in this case have all attempted to point fingers at each other. They have,
We got the Spider-Man reference here. Oh, boy.
despite their efforts to insulate themselves and to distance themselves from their co-conspirators, they made enough mistakes to get themselves caught and held accountable for their respective roles in this conspiracy. Today is Donna Adelson. Despite their efforts to play victims, Dan Markel is still the only victim in this case.
True.
The only thing he was guilty of was fighting like hell for those little boys, and he lost.
Katie was trying to say she was a victim of her baby daddy. Charlie was trying to say he was a victim of the extortionist. Donna's now trying to say that she was a victim of Charlie, Wendi, and also the extortionist as well. Everyone is a victim, but then they forget about Dan Markel, or they don't care.
2 separate paths, following the 2 most promising leads that they had. The first lead was to chase down that Prius that, thank God, Mr. Geiger caught a glimpse of pulling out of the driveway that morning. And the second path was to ask, as we would with any murder investigation, who had a motive to want him dead? And within 1 hour of the shooting, well before Professor Markel had even been pronounced dead, this path was already pointing to the defendant when Wendi Adelson revealed to officers that her parents had more reason to dislike her ex than anyone else.
The legal process to do it. My parents are, very angry towards him. But even when they're around my kids, they would never say a bad word about my kid's father.
Evidence has shown that Donna Adelson was all about psychological warfare, and when all else failed, she was willing to do whatever it took. Despite some of the testimony that you heard, it is clear that the divorce between Wendi and Dan was contentious.
But this was Wendy's testimony from a couple days ago.
Was this a contentious divorce?
It was.
Except the person who cared most about Wendy's divorce, and relocation specifically, wasn't Wendi. It was her mother. Because Charlie didn't care about the Adelson family getting a win against Dan Markel. He didn't care about relocation. He didn't care about Wendy's divorce. He cared about go-karts and jet skis and pretty girls. But he also cared about getting things done for the number one woman in his life, and that was his mother.
Yep. She talks about how they were micromanaging Wendi Adelson's life, telling her to pull the plug on buying the house after she lost the relocation because she was planning on buying a house and settle in Tallahassee. She kind of gave up. Also, trying to force Wendi to pursue this guy named Dave because he was very successful.
Wendi needs their help, right? Because according to them, she doesn't even have enough of a brain in her head to run her own life without their help.
Yikes.
Donna decides what's best for everyone, and if she runs into any problems making that happen, Charlie is her go-to guy to get it done.
George is going to go through all of the unhinged things that Donna Adelson was doing after the relocation was denied and before Dan Markel was murdered.
Fall of 2012, the defendant told her son, Rob Adelson, that she had been in Tallahassee for several months, renting a new place for Wendi. She used her own maiden name to do that, to disguise the identity, moving money around and getting things set up for Wendi to leave Dan. She tells him she and the boys are moving out of the marital home, and the defendant gleefully, that was Rob's word, reported to Rob, her son, that she and Wendi strategically planned to deliver that news to Mr. Markel so that he would get this bomb dropped on him right as he's about to take the stage to deliver this lecture.
Yep.
The suggestion that Wendi pursue a restraining order against Dan Markel, that Wendi should go for 100% full custody of those two kids, and the threat of this conversion to Christianity. Quote, if he leaves you in Tallahassee, the children will not be attending Hebrew day school. That's not a threat, just a warning. A warning that her friend, Ms. Cunningham, on the stand dismissed. Oh, that was just a foolish thing to say, right? Convert the children to Christianity in order to strong-arm Mr. Markel.
She mentioned that she had said that, and she said, that was so foolish of me.
When did she say that?
I don't know whether we were together or on a phone call, I'm not sure.
Her son Rob described her. She has rigid and fixed ideas of what she wants. And as long as you comply, things are fine. But when you don't comply, things are not fine.
George is going to make it really clear to the jury that Donna wanted relocation and that she was actively working on all this divorce stuff in order to get her way.
Wendi's lawyer says she had no knowledge of Wendi's mom being involved in her divorce, but the evidence shows she absolutely was. Wendi sends the proposed petition for relocation from her lawyer to the defendant with a note that says, here it is, let's edit. And the defendant responds the next day with detailed feedback, including an argument that Dan Markel is incapable of taking care of his own children and that Wendi should seek 100% custody. Arguments which Wendi forwarded to her lawyer as her own. And upon receiving the lawyer's answer, she sends the lawyer's answer back to the defendant. That's in evidence. The defendant writes here that Dan needs to know that there's no way in hell Wendi is going to stay at FSU. On January 14th, Wendi files an amended petition with request to relocate, which you can read and see. The petition contains many of the defendant's arguments. She couches this relocation in terms of not only important, but like a matter of life and death. Look at these quotes. It will create a major negative change in our lives. It will ruin your entire life. The rest of all our lives, mine, Dad's, and even Charlie's, will be affected by how well she can perform and act before July 31st to try to get this relocation thing turned around. Donna has even started pre-screening men for Wendi to date in the Miami area. In this email, defendant says she's sitting at Wendi's kitchen table working on Wendi's response to the filing we just talked about that Dan Markel made. So much for her having no involvement in her daughter's divorce. She says in this email to a friend, all Wendi wants out of this is to relocate to South Florida where she has us and Charlie. Danny is making it very difficult.
And again, a reminder that in these emails, just how hateful Donna sounds towards Dan.
That Dan's religious practices are fanatical and dangerous to the boys, and that Dan Markel is psychologically unfit to have custody of his children. It's not sounding very amicable, is it?
Nope.
Donna Adelson repeatedly paints Dan Markel as a self-important idiot who's not fit to care for his own children. Dan Markel sent Wendi an email in December, which was pretty personal, and in which he is kind of a mea culpa. He apologizes for things that went wrong in the marriage and takes some accountability for what he views as his mistakes in the marriage. And Wendi forwards this email to her mother. Donna responds to this personal email and goes through Dan Markel's writings paragraph by paragraph, suggesting how Wendi can manipulate his words against him. Oh, look, he's admitting this here. This will help you in the divorce.
Wait, I wish we can read this.
Suggesting how Wendy can manipulate his words against him. Oh, look, he's admitting this. Here, this will help you in the divorce. And she does it in Wendy's voice. It's weird. Look at it. Wendy seems to be complaining about her mom overstepping. You know, she's trampling my autonomy. It's like she's also inviting her mother into her business.
She's feeling it.
And wants her help. But also, don't trample my autonomy. May of 2013, the defendant refers to one of Dan Markel's responses as a, quote, 23-page rant. Then she doubles down on relocation as the most important and non-negotiable part of Wendy's divorce. I mean, how many times does she have to tell y'all it's important? But somehow the defense is still, it wasn't important. Or it was over. It didn't matter. Dan Markel threatened Wendy with federal kidnapping charges. He threatened her daughter with federal kidnapping charges for taking those kids without telling him where she was going when she left. The defendant signs off, "I'm too angry to write anymore." And the evidence has shown that this nice, normal, sweet little grandma certainly was angry. To support the argument, she keeps these extremely detailed day planners. But Dan Markel's travel schedule is of particular interest, in fact, in light of the fact that the hitman knew that Dan Markel had to be killed on July 18th because he was going out of town the next day. The question is how they get that information. Who had that information?
Georgia addresses one of the weird things the defense was trying to defend, that Donna didn't know about the relocation decision by the judge, that it was final.
When Wendy was on the stand, the defense made a big deal out of, oh, you didn't tell mom it was final, did you? You stipulated to it, didn't you? Which we later learned was because the judge had already ruled at sidebar that it wasn't going to happen. But basically, you know, you kept your poor mom in the dark and she thought this was still something that was viable and you didn't tell her it wasn't. But on redirect, it was proven that that was not true. Defendant did know that the order was final, and she expressed this in an email to her friends. Poor mom wasn't kept in the dark on anything in this family. Maybe everyone knew that on the lawyer's side, but the defendant didn't know that. She was not happy about this loss in court. Here she laments, unfortunately, after paying a lawyer $600 an hour for 10 months, case preparation, the judge listened to Wendy for 1 hour and made up her mind. Outrageous. So at the moment, we will not be allowed to relocate. Note the phrase, at the moment. Gibbers had not beaten the Adelson family yet. Defendant concludes this email anyway. If I sound angry, it's because I am. We're all very upset and cannot believe the outcome. She couldn't believe relocation was denied. When Wendy expresses defeat over the court's order, the defendant isn't having it. She encourages Wendy to never, never, never give up, to take control, to not let Gibbers think he's won anything by having you remain in Tallahassee, and to show this fucker what will make him absolutely miserable. How amicable.
As far as the litigation is concerned, it was not very contentious.
Not at all.
And this is where defendant reveals her plan of action, including having her Jewish grandsons baptized and offering $1 million to Dan Markel to facilitate this relocation. Control is a theme that's featured prominently throughout this email and throughout this case. There is evidence that the defendant controlled Wendy, she controlled Harvey, and she controlled Charlie. But she could not control Dan Markel. He wasn't going to give her a win. According to her own daughter, Wendy, she's the dominant force in that household. And according to her son, Rob, she is a controlling person as opposed to the more passive, go-with-the-flow type of personality that the dad, Harvey, has. The defense attorney told you that this defendant was a normal person. But in this email, she suggests that dressing her Jewish grandchildren up in Hitler youth uniforms would be acceptable. That would accomplish her goals. The ends justify the means for her, people. That is illustrated here, and it sums up this entire case. Charlie, who liked the idea of being a tough guy, who had connections to people on the wrong side of the tracks, the price of Dan Markel's life was worth the reward of pleasing his mother and easing her diarrhea and getting her to finally shut up about Wendy's divorce.
Do we have to bring up diarrhea at 9 in the morning? After the relocation was denied, the defense wants you to think that that was it. They weren't fighting for it anymore, that the Adelsons were just chill and accepted the decision. However, emails, text messages prove otherwise.
3 months after the divorce was final, the defendant forwards an email to Charlie Adelson, which Dan Markel had sent Wendy. And the defendant adds the note, "This is what this fucker is sending your sister on a regular basis. He is absolutely crazy. Impossible." Does it sound like everything was over? This was the amicable divorce over? Not contentious at all, right? This is fall of 2013, the same time frame in which Wendy starts dating Jeff Lacoste, and Charlie starts dating Catherine Magbanua. Several important events in the case occur on Halloween 2013. One, Wendy officially takes Dan Markel back to court, filing her motion to enforce the marital settlement agreement. So she's alleging he violated it, and she's asking to hold him in contempt of court, alleging that he's not paid the agreed upon fees that he was supposed to pay by a certain deadline. Wendy backs out of the contract that she had signed to buy a house in Tallahassee on Halloween 2013. Charlie later brags to the defendant that he talked Wendy out of buying the house, and the defendant calls him a miracle worker for having convinced Wendy not to buy the house in Tallahassee. Charlie meets up with Catherine Magbanua on Lincoln Road on Halloween 2013, the same day Wendy pulled the plug on the house, and broaches the subject with her for the first time of, hey, do you know anybody that I could hire to harm someone? And she did.
Now, fast forward a couple months to December, where Dan Markel is going to complain that Donna has been saying things to kids about Dan Markel. And no, they're not positive things.
The defendant, Donna Adelson, disparaging him to his kids. He very plainly gives a preview of the grandma motion, which will ultimately be filed in March of the next year. And here he says that on November 8th, one of the boys announced at a Markel family dinner that grandma, referring to this defendant, says you're stupid. Grandma says you're stupid. Then the following Monday, on November 11th, when Dan Markel was buckling the boys in at the park, they both tell him that grandma says you're stupid. When asked why, they say because you're trying to take her sunshines away from her. When asked who are her sunshines, the boys answer they are her sunshines. Then again on November 30th, while playing with the older child, that child repeated the statements to Dan Markel, grandma says you're stupid. And again when asked why, the child repeated that the defendant said that Dan Markel was stupid because he was trying to take Grandma Sunshine's away from her. Markel implores Wendy to address the situation, as he would like to avoid a hearing in which his kids are going to be primary witnesses against their grandmother. He assures her that he will, though, if necessary, seek judicial relief that prevents contact between the children and their grandmother. This lawyer that testified said, oh, that wasn't going to work. Well, he didn't think so. Oh, well, that's no big deal. I've seen much worse than that in my career. Well, yeah, Dan Markel hadn't seen much worse than that. Dan Markel had a big problem with grandma saying he was stupid, and he wanted to take it up and address it with the judge if necessary. He threatened it, and those are fighting words. I'm going to terminate your parental rights. Wendy communicated with her mother on all these filings, and this one pertained directly to her mother. Of course they discussed it. Are you really to conclude that nobody was fighting anymore prior to Dan Markel's murder when the evidence leads you to conclude the exact opposite? This was a pressure cooker, and it was being turned up hotter and hotter with each passing day. Not only is this a situation that's escalating between the actual parties to the litigation, but now the defendant has moved from working behind the scenes, helping Wendy with the divorce, to actually being the subject of the pleadings that are before the court. So now we're into the year where Dan Markel is killed. 6 months after the divorce is final, defendant says of Dan Markel, wow, is he on drugs? Is he also going to pay $70K plus the legal fees and interest that bastard owes you? So the bad blood is going strong here 6 months before the murder. In February of 2014, Dan Markel emails Wendy threatening to file motions, exposing her for what he said was hiding assets, $200,000 worth of assets from the court, and giving false testimony under oath. And also to accuse her attorney of misconduct. We see a text from the defendant to Charlie. Wendy's totally stressed out. Yesterday was a rough one. She will probably have to go through another depo. Outrageous. Rob Adelson testified that his mother told him they were, quote, depoing Wendy to death. But then their expert witness got up there and said Wendy was never deposed. I guess they didn't.
She said that Wendy was not deposed and that she put in a protective order so Wendy wouldn't be deposed.
Defendant accuses Dan Markel of stalking Wendy, and Charlie agreed. Defendant again reports to Charlie how Wendy's hearing went and talks about how there are plans to seek to have Dan Markel forced to submit to psychological testing. Here, defendant is 7 months after the divorce and just 5 months before the murder, responding to Dan Markel's filing a request to produce, and she says it's time to give it to him. Let's aggravate him the way he's trying to aggravate you. And what can your attorney do to be proactive to give him some grief? Can't you meet with her and work out a plan of attack? Something has to be done with this asshole. The asshole showed up at soccer yesterday, and she goes into a story about, he showed up at soccer and they got into it. And then she ends with such a fucker. Super amicable.
Harvey's 70th birthday is going to be brought up again because state believes that Harvey's gift was to have Dan Markel murdered.
Defendant texts Charlie that she's going to call him from the bathroom in Gainesville where she can have some privacy. Please pick up because I will have very limited alone time today. Erase this text after you read it.
Look at this kissy face as she writes at the very end. I have some good ideas.
Then the defendant says, we'll speak privately about Dad's birthday gift. So erase after reading. You might think, well, maybe she was just trying to keep the birthday gift a surprise. But why does Charlie need to erase it? Harvey's not with Charlie. Harvey's with Donna.
True.
And according to Rob, there were no birthday gifts for Harvey unless the murder was supposed to be the birthday gift.
Her own son, Rob Adelson, testified that there was no birthday gift given to Dad. Also, this birthday gift took place in between the first attempted hit and before the second actual hit.
But then they also suggest that Harvey sent the Evite, so I don't think they can have it both ways. You can't send the invitations and be surprised by the friends. Now, technically, the defense didn't say that, but the defense so far has been saying that you don't know who wrote these emails. It could have been Harvey. So when Mr. Zellman makes this statement, it kind of makes sense that the state would allude to, oh, they're probably blaming Harvey too for making the Evite. Or Wendy.
I believe that you indicated that there was an indication that Donna Adelson was unfamiliar with that process.
Correct.
As we sit here today, you cannot testify that Donna Adelson created that event on evite.com, can you?
I can only testify as to the email where she asked if her invitations had been sent yet, and where she describes how she entered the contacts, how she entered the invitees as contacts. That's the only thing that I can take from that email.
It seems like Donna was the one who was in charge of it then. We're around the springtime now in Georgia's timeline where Wendy, her boyfriend Jeff, who testified, are going to meet with Charlie and his girlfriend, Katie at the time.
Stuck out to Mr. Lacasse. After dinner in the hot tub, Charlie bragged about having connections to people on the wrong side of the tracks.
Etc. But he also knew, was familiar and had social contacts that were in the criminal element. And he's kind of bragging, and he kind of specifically mentioned Cuban neighborhoods as a place where you would find that criminal element.
Notable in the same time frame, March 21st, 2014, the defendant signs a lease on a condo in South Beach, a condo where Wendy, after Dan's killed, would move in with her kids.
On March 26, 2014, this is when Dan Markel officially files what is called the grandma motion by the state. And I know the defense doesn't like that. Now, this is where Dan Markel again brings up that Donna was disparaging him in front of the two very young children, and that if Donna was to have contact with them, it should be supervised. She also...
How do you think Donna took this information? She refers to those kids as hers. She was the one sacrificing her time at the office to be up here in Tallahassee doing for those boys. She had invested so much of her own time in this fight against Dan Markel to try to get a win for the family. And after all that investment in those kids and all the money spent on the attorneys and all that time spent at the kitchen table working on those divorce filings, Donna Adelson was losing. Gibber still had not beaten the Adelson family because there was still another option, the option of hiring the hitman. Charlie joked about hiring a hitman, but he had also been actively pursuing that option at least since Halloween of 2013. Recall that Magbanowa said that often when she and Charlie would discuss the murder and the pressing need to get it done, he would emphasize to her that the toll that Wendy's situation was taking on his parents emotionally and physically as they were stressed to the point of being physically ill. So he would often tell her that's the motive. That's why we need to get this done. It's like stressing out my mom. Prior to the June trip, Charlie had prepared an envelope containing the murder instructions. He told Catherine Magbanowa that he used gloves when handling the paperwork inside, that he printed it not on any printer that couldn't be connected to him, and that she was not to touch the contents of what was inside. She was to deliver the envelope to Sigfredo Garcia. She followed these instructions. In early June, she came back to Charlie asking for travel expenses for the hitman. She got a couple $100 to give them to rent a car to come up here. They came, well, let's back up just a little bit. They rented the car June 2nd, 2014. Magbanowa drops Garcia off at the rental car place, and then Magbanowa calls Charlie on the way home from the rental car place. And you saw the evidence of this in Sergeant Corbett's presentation.
This is the beginning of June where the hitmen attempt to kill Dan Markel the first time. However, they talk about how it doesn't happen because they either lost him or they didn't want to do it in front of the children.
This information allowed them to locate and follow Dan Markel's vehicle, a black Honda Accord with the tag number 534YBM. Information that the defendant had written in her 2014 planner.
Oof.
Wendy and Jeff Lacasse have their coffee date. at which she cancels their planned trip to California on July 11th through the 17th. She offers no real explanation for why she's canceling, except to say that she's real worried about being able to pick up the boys on the 18th. The 18th, of course, ends up being the day that Dan Markel is killed.
Yep.
Later that night, Jeff Lacoste goes to Wendy's, and she's a nervous wreck. She won't tell him what's wrong, but her stomach's upset, and he goes and gets her Pepto-Bismol. The killers are in town when
I guess the Adelsons, whenever they're a nervous wreck and they feel like something's about to go down, they just have stomach issues. So seems like that's the thing with Donna, and then Donna probably passed it on to the daughter, Wendy. Diarrhea. Wendy, maybe diarrhea as well. Stomach pains. Who knows?
that happens. The hitmen spend a day and a half following Dan Markel around Tallahassee. After the hitmen fail to get the job done, Charlie tells Donna on June 7th of 2014 that he's still working on Dad's birthday present, and she says, "I know you'll come through." On June 11th, Jeff Lacoste went over to Wendy's residence and observed her living room TV to have some impact damage. This was the same TV that Charlie got Wendy as a divorce present because it was cheaper than hiring a hitman.
During the first attempted hit, Wendy gets really nervous and she has like a stomach ache. Jeff goes over to see what's going on with her, and then the hit fails. I wonder if Wendy went back to the family and was like, "Hey, like, I don't know if I can do this. Like, I'm so nervous. Like, I don't know. Like, what if they think it's me?" And then the family was like, "Don't worry. What about we try to schedule a TV appointment during the time that Dan Markel is going to get killed? That way you have an alibi, and that way they don't suspect you." And then Wendy's like, "Oh, okay, I guess that will work." I wonder if that was a way for them to convince Wendy, "Okay, let's try it again a second time. You got this. We got you covered."
June 13th, the defendant has a note in her calendar to consider canceling Harvey's birthday party if that's what he wants to do. Now, this is between the June and July trips, that there's a note to herself to talk to Harvey about whether or not he wants to cancel the party. Rob Adelson testified that there was no illness or anything going on in the family that he knew of that would potentially result in the canceling of Dad's party. This note may be contemplating that if the murder had happened on the June trip, that Harvey might decide it's not appropriate to go through with the party and we need to cancel these invitations. Wendy took a photo with Catherine Magbanoa on the beach 2 days after that note to self in the planner. Here she is in front of the South Beach condo, pictured with Catherine Magbanoa. That photo was taken June 15th of 2014.
I wonder if Katie met with Wendy to try to convince her, "Hey, don't worry, we got this, we can do this."
Wendy sends Rob a text with a picture of her and Jeff Lacoste. This is June 28th of 2014. She includes a request to her brother Rob not to tell her parents about her relationship with Jeff. The suggestion of a secret boyfriend later prompted Rob to suggest Jeff as a potential suspect to the FBI, a secret boyfriend. This was also a little odd that she sent this because Wendy never talked to Rob about her boyfriends, and also because Jeff had already met her parents several times.
And apparently, Donna didn't really like Jeff. We're getting closer to the day that Dan Markel was killed, and Charlie is pressuring Katie to get it done. And that Dan was awful. Wendy stressed, making Wendy's life hell and stressing out his parents. July 3rd is where the Evites are going to be sent for Harvey's 70th birthday. And in that Evite, Wendy's name and the boys' names have already been changed to Adelson. Dan Markel was still alive, and their last names were still Markel at this point. This was a party hosted by Donna for Harvey, and they could try to blame Harvey, or they can try to blame Wendy, that Wendy was the one that changed the last names to Adelson. Around 2 weeks before the murder, Wendy sends a text message to Dan Markel while she's in the new South Beach condo, making sure that Dan Markel is going to be in town during the time frame that the hitmen are going to be there. She asked if he's going to be in town July 14th through the 18th. The hitmen, they arrived July 15th, and Dan Markel was killed on the 18th. Well, he was shot at and then killed within 48 hours after.
Dan Markel confirms, "Yes, I'm going to be in town to get murdered." Not specifically, but he's asked, "Are you going to be in town July 14th or the 18th? Those are the dates the killers were here." And this, despite the fact that the schedule for that week had already been decided way before this text. And Wendy was already scheduled to have the boys on that Wednesday, which is what she's asking about. Both Harvey Adelson and the defendant separately, 8 minutes apart, email Wendy Adelson about her TV repair appointment that's going to happen on the day of the murder. July 13th, Wendy and Lacoste meet at Wendy's house, and she's an emotional wreck again for no apparent reason. Lacoste impeached her regarding some statements that she made during a discussion of their relationship that evening in the context of you know, you got to get past this moving to Miami thing. I mean, what, you're not going to be able to move to Miami. And she says, you know, yeah, it's not an issue unless something happens to Dan. And she says, can I tell you something in confidence?
Oh, gosh.
And she makes the chilling statement at that time that her brother, besides joking about hiring a hitman because it was buying a TV because it was cheaper than hiring a hitman, he also, in fact, had looked into hiring a hitman to kill Dan Markell.
You know what? The reason why Wendy is so fucked about this issue is because Wendy told Jeff Lacasse about the hiring the hitman thing, right? We can always say that, like, hey, we don't know Wendy really said that. Maybe Jeff is lying. Maybe Jeff is a very bitter ex-boyfriend. However, Wendy repeats this in the police interview. She tells the law enforcement this. It's recorded. We all can hear it. July 15th, the hitmen, they rent a Prius. The next day, they travel up to Tallahassee. July 18th, the day that Dan Markell is going to get killed, we have some very weird things happening on Wendy's end.
July 18th, 8:11 a.m., the defendant texts Wendy about the TV repair appointment. This is the TV that Charlie bought as a divorce present because it's cheaper than hiring a hitman. Could it be a coincidence that this TV is also the alibi for Wendy on the day of the murder? While he's being murdered by a hitman, and then, as we know, the defendant later uses TV as code when she's speaking on those wiretap calls.
Yep.
8:20 a.m., Wendy texts Charlie, "This is so sweet." We don't know what it means, but she's texted him that, and then she deletes.
She deletes this. Oh, Wendy.
Did it sometime between the time it was sent, 8:20 a.m., and the time that her phone was cell-brighted or downloaded at the police station later that day.
Yep.
9:04 a.m., Dan Markell leaves a voicemail for Wendy telling her he's headed to the gym and wants to know if it's okay for him to pick up the boys early and take them swimming that afternoon. Wendy says no, he cannot take the boys swimming after school that day. Meanwhile, what's going on across town? The Prius is following Dan Markell into the gym parking lot. There it is at 9:16 a.m. 9:19 a.m. to 9:37 a.m., Charlie and Wendy talk for 18 minutes. Wendy and Dan argue back and forth a bit about him wanting to take the boys swimming, but after getting off the phone with Charlie, Wendy concedes the argument with Dan and says, okay, you can pick them up and bring them back to me when you're done swimming. But of course the swimming plan didn't happen because Dan Markell was killed. 12:45, so while the killers are calling Magbanua and heading south, Wendy goes out of her way to visit the crime scene, encounters a roadblock and crime scene tape. Per the officer at the roadblock, she would have been able to clearly see the police activity at her former residence. The residence where her children currently lived half the time and where they woke up that morning.
She
Yet she abruptly turns around and leaves. She does not make contact with the officer to ask what's going on. She does not call the police to inquire. She does not call Dan Markell to say, are you okay? There's a bunch of cops at the house.
Yikes.
She does not call the daycare to make sure her children arrive that morning and are okay. Instead, she proceeds to the ABC Liquors, purchases her bullet bourbon at 12:49. She's later approached by law enforcement at lunch and gives a law enforcement interview in which she says, my parents have more reason to dislike Danny than almost anyone else. This echoes Rob Adelson's testimony that his mother hated Dan Markell at the time of his murder. And even from the periphery, it was known to Ryan Fitzpatrick, as Charlie's friend, that his mother did not like Dan Markell. In her law enforcement interview, Wendy suggests her mother is someone who was very angry at Dan Markell.
Ryan Fitzpatrick is Charlie's former friend.
Suggests Charlie when asked if someone might do this on her behalf. 8:59, defendant arrives at Charlie's with the murder money.
Oh, God.
How do we know she went there and that they aren't just old people that drive really slow? Well, there's a text message outside your house. I guess we're going to find out what that means, but I guess it's not going to be outside your house.
Yo, let's see what the defense is going to say about that. I don't know. I think it's going to be really hard for the defense to try to explain that away. She wasn't outside of the house, even though the text says outside the house. At 10 p.m., Katie's going to end up joining Charlie and have a sleepover. Charlie opens the door with like a gun in his hand. I don't know, trying to be gangster, I guess. And he tells Katie that, oh, my mom just left. And so they both take a Xanax together, probably because both of them were feeling a little bit stressed with what's going on. I mean, Dan Markel had just gotten murdered. Now it's the next day. Katie's gonna go back. She's gonna take the money with her and she's gonna pay out the hitman. They're gonna pay each other about roughly a third. And remember, the hitmen, they have never had this much amount of money in their bank account before. Katie has never had this deposit this large in her bank account. And so everyone starts to, what do? They start spending money. They start buying cars, vehicles. At this point, it hasn't even been 48 hours since Dan Markel has been shot. Donna, Wendy, Harvey, they are already driving the boys down to South Florida to relocate from Tallahassee. During this drive, Wendy gets a call from the lead investigator, and then she pretends to oh, I can't hear you. Oh, the call's hanging up. And so she hangs up the call, and then later on, I guess the lead investigator is contacted by Wendy's attorney saying, hey, if you want to talk to us, if you want to talk to Wendy, you got to talk to her through me. Rob also gets a call from Donna saying, don't talk to the FBI. And Rob, again, is the brother. He says, well, I already talked to them. And Donna's like, well, you don't know anything anyways. On July 24th, Dan Markel was put to rest in Toronto, Canada. Quite interestingly, none of the Adelson family, none of them went. Dan Markel's own children weren't even in attendance of that. So about a month and a half later, they register the young boys into flag football, and guess what last name they used? They used Adelson, not even Markel. They're already erasing the Markel dad out of the children's lives. Now we get to the checks, the payments, and hopping over to the bump.
9/17 of 14. The first check is written to Catherine Magbanua, signed by this defendant. This is the murder money.
Oof.
The defense said in opening that Charlie told Donna to write the checks because it was his business. But half of these checks were written after the business was sold back to Harvey on October 2nd, 2015.
Yep.
Fast forward to October of 2015. Charlie's had a couple girlfriends since the murder and is now dating June Mchinda. June observes that Charlie packages his money in an unusual way. $100 bills stapled into $1,000 stacks. June also observes the defendant to be in control of the family and super involved with the grandchildren. However, she found it odd that nobody in the family seemed curious about who killed Dan Markel, nor did they seem upset about the murder. Rob Adelson also noted a complete lack of curiosity on the part of his mother about this murder in the family. When he asked what the defendant...
I love how Georgia is bringing up Rob. I love how she's bringing him up so many times to use it against Donna. Donna was very worried about Rob's testimony.
...thought happened to Danny, she said, quote, I don't know and I don't care. It doesn't concern me.
Georgia says that from July of 2014, when Dan Markel was murdered, all the way to April of 2016, things were perfect. Donna had everything she wanted. She had the grandchildren. She had Wendy. Things were just working out for her. And then the bump happens, which is the undercover operation. Georgia's going to point out some weird things about Donna Adelson.
The undercover approaches Donna and hands her a piece of paper. The most human reaction in the world is to look at the paper.
Right.
Uh-oh. Defense told you in opening that this defendant is a normal person just like you and me. There is nothing normal about the way she conducts herself in the minutes, hours, and days after the undercover approaches her. Does it involve me or other people? Well, probably both of us. That is direct evidence. This TV was probably about 5. She's the original code talker. Look what he says. Well, they asked you for $5,000. He decodes it. He's not the one talking in code. He's decoding it and saying what she's...
Because he's an idiot.
He's picking up what she's putting down. There's no TV mentioned by the undercover operative that approached Donna Adelson on the street. Please, innocent people do not talk in code. Second big takeaway, TV is code for the murder throughout this case. You got Charlie's joke, Wendy's chilling statement to Jeff Lacasse, the alibi of the TV, and now here we've got this TV again. A TV that's the alibi for Wendy. It sat broken for over a month so that a repairman could come out to be her alibi on the morning of the murder.
I wonder if any of Donna's friends are listening to closing arguments. Come on, listen to closing arguments, or are they dodging it because they just don't want to hear it?
An appointment that her parents set up for her, which was pointless because the TV was smashed and of course could not be repaired. Then she claimed she had an 18-minute phone call with Charlie about the fact that a smashed TV can't be fixed before she got in her car and went to the crime scene, where she did not get out of her car or make any phone calls or make any inquiries about what was going on at the house where her kids lived.
Georgia is going to again reiterate to the jury that the extortion, double extortion claim just doesn't make sense.
About that defense, I told you earlier that he said that Magbanua, Garcia, and Rivera acted alone. They just came to Tallahassee and killed Dan Markel, you know, kind of in the hopes that they would get paid. There were several pieces of evidence that Charlie had to explain, and he designed a defense that he thought would do that. Well, the problem with that is, normally you're not going to have your extortionist spend the night with you. You're not going to have the woman that has murdered your former brother-in-law spend the night with you. You're not going to inquire about her plans to go to the pool the next morning if she's, you know, just murdered your ex-brother-in-law. So to explain these messages, he testified that he did not believe she was a part of it. She wasn't one of the extortionists. I was extorted by the killers. I had nothing to do with it. No one in my family had anything to do with it. But I thought that Magbanua was just a victim of the hitman too. She was a go-between for them.
Both were terrible.
She was protecting him from them. All the money he and his mom were paying her, cash and checks, were going to the hitman, not for the benefit of Catherine Magbanua. Even the checks that were being deposited into her bank account, he said he believed she was taking out and giving the money to the killers. It was just funneling through her account so she could get insurance for her kids. So when Charlie says in those first couple wire calls, if there's a threat, you go to the police, it's of interest that Donna doesn't say, what do you mean if there's a threat? We've been extorted for 2 years. There's been a threat for 2 years. Charlie did tell his best friend Ryan Fitzpatrick about the bump. So what I want to highlight here is the difference between their conduct during this like alleged extortion that was going on for 2 years versus the way they act after the bump, which we know was a ruse, but was supposed to be like a blackmail effort. So Charlie tells Ryan Fitzpatrick about the bump, but he never previously confided in Ryan Fitzpatrick about, even though it's his best friend, about being extorted for 2 years by this girlfriend of his or her associates. Ryan also noted a major change in Charlie's demeanor around the time of the bump. He was displaying a level of stress and anxiety that was not present before the bump, evidencing that his story about being extorted the whole time is false. June Mchinda noticed these changes in Charlie's behavior as well, but she also noted a major change in this defendant's demeanor after the bump. Although she didn't know about the bump, around this time she observed the defendant to be a mess. She had a swollen face, was crying, and said she was on painkillers for stress. On the balcony of the Icon, which I'm not sure that's the right balcony, but some high-rise, the defendant told June Mchinda she felt Danny was haunting her from the grave. Why would she make that statement?
She brings up such a good point about being extorted for 100 grand versus being extorted for 5 grand.
So when the bump happens, they resist, right? They don't open their safe up. It's only $5,000 compared to thousands and thousands of dollars they've been paying.
True.
$5,000, they don't pay. They resist. They take action. There are in-person meetings between Charlie Adelson and his mother, Charlie Adelson and Catherine Magbanua, and eventually with Dad too, about the bump and what to do about it. Investigate the bump. This defendant questions every aspect of the undercover. His look, his words, his behavior. You know, it's done like that, it's not done like that. Charlie enlists Catherine Magbanua to find out who it is and to handle it, right? Charlie says he's not going to take it lying down. He threatens Nazi shit if they mess with his family. Katie, I don't care what I spend. You'd better kill him because he's going to be a big problem. If he can't do it, I'll have someone else do it. Now these guys want an extra 5 grand. You're going to kill him when you've been paying, I don't know how many, $100 and some odd thousand over the past 2 years.
Wow, that's a great point for her to make.
You weren't killing anybody then, but now they're going to launch a full-scale investigation over $5,000 more.
After the bump, Donna contacts Charlie about it. Charlie doesn't want to call. Charlie contacts Katie. Katie doesn't want to call. Katie tells Sigfredo, tells him to call, and he doesn't want to call either.
He assures her repeatedly it's being handled. There's nothing to worry about. Don't freak out. Magbanua does not want to make that phone call, though, and neither does Garcia. And you hear him pretty emphatic on that wire that he's not making that phone call.
Over, you're gonna tell me I'm gonna make a phone call. I'm not making that fucking phone call.
But everybody starts lying to each other about having called it because everybody wants to reassure the co-conspirator up the chain that it's all good, I'm handling it, it's not going to come back on us.
If you guys haven't seen I forgot what day it was when the wiretaps were happening. If you're listening to it, the entire live stream for about 7-8 hours, it might sound really droning and boring, but it was actually really interesting. I did a recap video on it and go watch it. The wiretaps was freaking hilarious. After they thought the bump was handled, Charlie decides to give Katie and Garcia, the guy who's extorting them, a gift. Does that make sense to you guys?
He has a very nice gift for Garcia's birthday. So if we think about his defense, the defense that this guy is extorting him after he, on his own, went and killed the ex-brother-in-law, he's going to buy a birthday gift for the guy? The evidence has shown that the co-conspirators in this case were all on a need-to-know basis for their own protection. That's why Catherine Magbanua wasn't shown the murder instructions. That's why no Adelson had any contact with the hitmen. And that's why the defendant didn't attend the murder meetings with Charlie Adelson and his mother. They were insulating each other. In May of 2016, after the bump, the defendant stops writing checks. The bad guy comes up to you and wants more money. So what do? You stop writing the checks you've been writing for 2 years under some threat? She's still not going to the police, but apparently she's not scared anymore. She's going to stand up to him and stop writing the checks, okay? Why? Isn't it because she's gotten spooked, because she's figured out this is law enforcement, and they're getting close? In May and June of 2016, Garcia and Rivera are arrested. The news of this makes it all the way to Rob Adelson's operating room. When Rob next speaks to his mother, he says, hey, they got the guys. They arrested the guy that shot Danny. Getting no response, he brings up the matter again, like, did you hear they got the guys that killed Danny? And she responds, I've got to go, and she hangs up. That is the last time that Rob Adelson has talked to his mother. Because he knew, and she knew he knew. If Garcia acted alone and then extorted Charlie, why is Charlie's lawyer meeting with Garcia's lawyer? This is your extortionist. In fact, regardless of whatever the defense is, why are the two of them meeting?
Right.
Unless they have common interests. And
Yep.
while Charlie's lawyer is at this meeting, he runs into Magbanua.
Ooh.
Magbanua hasn't been arrested yet. She's up there seeing Garcia's lawyer. Well, why is she doing that? According to Charlie's story that this defendant adopted, Magbanua is not in on it. She's a victim too of Garcia, her baby daddy, who's a bad dude. And when they learn that Magbanua was up there, Charlie says, oh, my lawyer ran into Magbanua while he was up there. He said she's nice and pretty, and Donna says, just like all your girlfriends.
Oh.
Well, why isn't she saying, what do you mean? Why is she up there? I thought
Right. Why would she be like, fuck that person because she extorted us? Oh my gosh. Yeah. Just like all your girlfriends. Oh my God. They're so dumb.
Charlie and the defendant are discussing a newspaper article in the Tallahassee Democrat, which talks about a drug dealer that the killers had contact with when they were here in Tallahassee. And they're basically spitballing alternative defenses. This is August of 2016. They've known, supposedly, who the killer was. The truth came out that the killer was Garcia and that they knew about it since the time of the killing. But here they are saying, well, maybe a drug dealer killed Danny and a drug deal going bad. And this is because the extortion thing hadn't been invented yet. The extortion thing didn't get invented until right before Charlie's trial in 2023.
Yep.
When he's trying to think of what he's going to say from that witness stand to explain all the evidence against him.
And oh boy, Donna, she just screws up so bad.
Interestingly, in October 16th of 2023, so just 7 days before Charlie's trial started, this defendant, Donna Adelson, Googled the difference between blackmail and extortion. And the difference... Obviously, when they developed this defense in preparation for Charlie's trial, they realized the term blackmail was not a good word for them because it indicates they were somehow involved. You gotta have some dirt. She doubles down on it when she writes that script for the witness, Drina Bernhardt, who she solicited to come in here and perjure herself to you all. Extort, underlined. This script is Charlie's story. She's again adopting it by writing it out for her witness that she's trying to recruit to come in and deliver it to y'all.
Yes, Donna was dumb enough to write this script in her own handwriting while being incarcerated. I can't believe that I didn't think about this. Georgia brings up such a good point.
If Charlie's defense was the truth, and Charlie and this defendant knew there was a threat to Wendy and her kids from the people that killed Dan, it's a little shocking that they failed to mention it to her. Instead, they let her and the boys move to Miami, where the bad guys were.
Right.
And, walk up and down the street without any extra protection or even knowing.
True.
The killers knew who they were and had threatened their lives.
I didn't even think about that. Oh my goodness, because that goes against Wendy, Donna, Charlie, reportedly moving Wendy and the kids within 48 hours of Dan Markel's death to South Florida. Let's say they didn't know at the time, within 48 hours, that it was those hitmen, right? They move them closer to be safe because Dan Markel was just murdered. And that's why there's a whole bullshit with the last name thing, right? Changing the last name, got to get the kids safe. However, when they were extorted by Katie, no, because the extortion would have happened when the hitman the extortion would have happened before the kids moved down with Wendy, because it happened the night that Dan Markel was murdered. When, gosh, this is so messy. It does not make sense. It would have happened the night when Dan Markel was murdered, when Katie goes over to Charlie's house and starts extorting him because, this is what the hitman did, and we want you to pay us some money. But of course, I don't know anything about it. I'm just a victim of Garcia, my baby daddy that is really bad. So it's like, why would you want to move the kids to South Florida where the hitman lived and where Katie lived? That's not safe. That's really dangerous. The kids should be left up in North Florida. Oh my God, what a good fucking point, Georgia. I didn't even think about that. Unless the defense was to argue, well, Charlie just didn't care. He did it anyways. Because remember, the defense's theory, which you'll hear very clearly in their closing, is that Donna didn't know about this extortion until September of 2014 when she started writing the checks. What a convenient explanation.
This is the defendant to Wendi Adelson. You know I'm next, but that won't happen. I'll take care of that. An important insight into her state of mind when you're considering this evidence about her flight to Vietnam. She says, protected his sister for years. Protected her? Protected her from what?
I think it's because Wendy testified and they weren't happy about Wendy's testimony.
Would he need to protect her from the knowledge that they were being extorted? Or does it make more sense that the protection that's referred to is the murder, and the fact that this defendant is a little angry that Wendy doesn't seem to appreciate what she views as a huge sacrifice that her brother has made for her.
Wow.
And her benefit. Wendy's not charged. This was all for her.
If there are any jurors that might have doubt about Donna being charged with first-degree murder, that she did it with intent, Georgia is essentially going to address that right here.
11/6/2023, Charlie is convicted. Nothing about the extortion defense adds up for Charlie, and it doesn't add up for Donna Adelson either. It's true that she did not pull the trigger. She's guilty of first-degree murder as a principle, which we talked about at jury selection, about how a party who assists in the murder can be charged and convicted the same as the person that pulled the trigger, even if they're not physically present when the trigger's pulled, which is not disputed that she was not. And you all agreed to follow that law, even if you ended up not liking it, right? I don't know if anyone admitted to not liking it, but you don't really know if you're going to like it or not until you have to make a decision. If you don't like it, you still must apply it. I know that I can trust you to do that.
Good explanation.
We talked in jury selection about the difference between direct and circumstantial evidence, and it's true that this is largely a circumstantial case. You might recall my powdered donuts example. Had direct evidence that it was the kid not covered in powdered donuts, but we agreed that being covered in the powdered donuts was pretty good evidence that that's the child that ate the donuts. This case is not entirely circumstantial. I mean, she's covered in powdered donuts, don't get me wrong. But there is direct evidence as well, and I want to go over those. Rob,
powdered donut or
when
cocaine?
Told that he'd already spoken to the police, she says, "Will, you don't know anything anyway." That's direct evidence. After being handed an article about Dan Markel's murder, it involves both of us. It involves the two of us. Number 3, 44 checks. She had the car, make, model, and license plate in her 2014 planner. Her statements to Bird, she admitted she did what she was accused of. The script written by this defendant in this defendant's handwriting for Drina Bernhardt to come in here and deliver to y'all about stuff that wasn't true. She also speaks in code. Innocent people do not speak in code, ladies and gentlemen. Consider the things she didn't do. She didn't want to talk on the phone. She didn't want to talk in the apartment. She did not want to send a picture of the bump flyer to Charlie. She didn't say the name of Dan Markel. Anywhere on that wire, she did not say his name. Dan, Danny, Gibbers, that asshole. Nothing. Why not? And she didn't go to the police. After Charlie's found guilty, the defendant sends this text to Wendi Adelson. Your brother protected you for years. Now you are not guilty. Your lawyer took very good care of you. You can bury me in the dress that I bought for Lincoln's bar mitzvah. Does not sound at that moment as if she's totally committed to attending the bar mitzvah.
This is why Wendy wanted Donna to stop talking to her. Because Donna's like, I'm not talking about the case. Well, now you're not guilty. I'm not talking about the case. Your brother protected for years. Like, Donna, shut the fuck up. Donna's just like Charlie right here.
Googled a list of U.S. extradition treaties. She was looking for a non-extradition country, and she booked a ticket to one with a stop in another non-extradition country. She applies for a fast-track emergency visa for Vietnam. I wanted it the fastest I can get it. She indicates a 30-day visa is not sufficient. She requests for the longest visa, which is 90 days, which is past the bar mitzvah date. She tries to get Wendy to help with business assistance. And when Wendy doesn't respond, she ends up asking her friend, Annie Cunningham, who y'all met in court. She says, I can't say exactly
Yeah, her friends should be ashamed of themselves, man. Those people.
why, but we need you guys to come here, both of you. Wendy's not responding to us, and we have an issue that we cannot discuss over the phone. Why can't you discuss it over the phone? You're just going on vacation.
That's what I said.
Donna makes notes in her planner to have Wendy have the lawyer tell Charlie where they are on the lawyer's private line, so the call will not be recorded. Why not? Y'all are going on vacation. You're coming back. You're not fleeing. There's also a note in her planner to cancel disability insurance. That doesn't seem like something one does when they're going on vacation. All right, November 13th, 2023, the defendant is arrested trying to board a one-way flight to a non-extradition country. I mean, y'all decide if it's a vacation. The defendant and her son set this up in a way that was designed to protect them. The main benefit of the structure of this conspiracy is that each party can insulate or distance themselves from each other. The primary risk of a conspiracy is that you're doing it with other people, right? You can get caught. Somebody can squeal. Somebody could give you up. And that's why the conspiracy is not shaped like this. Rather, you know, they're not all huddled up together. They're going to be more...
What is this pentagram? It looks like some demonic shit. Look at this demonic thing that Georgia made. Are we summoning Paimon? What's going on here? My computer's forever cursed now. Oh gosh.
Rather, you know, they're not all huddled up together. They're going to be more like train cars. This is the way we see the communication flow throughout the course of the conspiracy. We have all those words and acts that we went over that directly tie her. They are direct evidence tying her to this conspiracy, plus all the powdered sugar dust.
Damn, Donna be liking them donuts. You know, Sarah Boone likes Pop-Tarts. Donna, donuts.
Don't let the way she thought she was going to get away with this be the way she gets away with it. Render a verdict that does justice. Find her guilty. Thank you.
That was Georgia's closing argument. I think she did a really great job given how convoluted everything was and all the different lies that came afterwards. Now we're going to listen to the defense's closing argument. And surprisingly, it's not Mr. Zellman. It's Jackie. Jackie did the opening, and I guess she's doing the closing as well. I think Jackie knows better than to mess with the lectern.
Good afternoon. It's been a long day. You've heard a lot, but I hope you'll stay awake so you can hear me too, okay?
Oh, I think they'll stay awake all right for a different reason.
And I'd like to take you back to my opening statement. In my opening statement, there were some things referred to today that I'd like to address. The first one is that I stood up in my opening statement and said all of these wonderful things about Dan Markell, and then I called witnesses to attack him. That is not true.
She was listening to us. But you did, ma'am. I was just saying that. She's listening to my stream right now. She's got my stream in her earbud, or she know other people too. But you did. You know, yesterday was they were going after Dan Markell, saying that his legal writings was like verbose, that it lacked substance. He didn't know what he was doing, that it looks threatening. But then when you actually take it apart, it was actually nothing burger, and that Donna and Wendy had nothing to worry about, you know? To be fair, she is addressing what Georgia said in the beginning of her closing argument.
That is not true. In fact, the defense is the only part of this case that actually elicited evidence through testimony about the good qualities of Dan Markell. We elicited that on cross from his ex-wife, Wendy. And all of the things I told you in opening about what a wonderful man he was, a wonderful father, well...
From his ex-wife, Wendy, who is probably involved in the murder. I think she might have heard some YouTube stuff, and then she's clapping back at us right now. I don't know if this is a good beginning for her, huh?
We elicited that on cross from his ex-wife, Wendy. And all of the things I told you in the opening about what a wonderful man he was, a wonderful father, well-educated, successful, we elicited that testimony. And criticized today for having 2 witnesses who came and testified on the stand about the dissolution case and things that had been filed in it. That was not to attack Danny Markell. We didn't put that evidence on. The state is the one that made it an issue. They put those documents into evidence, the things that Mr. Markell had filed. So we're the defense, and we represent Donna Adelson, and we're just supposed to say, okay, well, they put it in, let's just let it sit there. We have an
okay, if I was a jury, I feel like, hey, ma'am, you're coming off a little too strong with that energy. I feel like it's being directed at me. I feel like you're pointing fingers at me, and I feel like you're giving me this accusatory language. I'd be like, listen, I just had my lunch, okay? Can we tone it down a little bit? Oh, gosh.
What happened in that divorce, whether it was contentious or not, was an issue the state brought up. They've been calling this a bitter custody battle for years. And they started this case by saying the same thing. So to have the people who were actually involved in the case point out that there never was a bitter custody battle is important, because there never was one.
But there was. There just was.
Was this a contentious divorce?
It was.
Never a time when they were fighting over somebody having access to the children. In those pleadings, nobody says, you can't have them, I've got them. But there was never one single time, and you can't be convinced that relocation was the issue where they were going to take Danny Markell's kids away from them. If you believe that, you are ignoring the evidence that the state of Florida put on against Donna Adelson.
I said I should say, then you are an idiot. I'm sorry, but she's coming a little too strong on the jury.
And when I told you in opening that this was all about theory and belief of what a motive was, and there was no evidence that crime was committed by my client, Donna Adelson, that is exactly what has happened in this courtroom. The state is ignoring the evidence that came in through their witnesses that support our defense, and instead they stand before you with calls and text messages, and they tell you what they mean. That's not evidence.
What? What? The state is ignoring evidence that came through their witness that supports Donna Adelson? What? How? And then she's saying that, and then they are telling you what that means. No, you are the one who called 2 witnesses that I could remember yesterday, and you're trying to tell us that it's not a contentious divorce, although we went through the emails and text messages of Donna Adelson and all the crazy shit that was happening behind the scenes. You're the one who's doing it to us. Are you projecting here?
Their argument about what a conversation means is not evidence. You decide what it means. You've got it in front of you, and you have to consider it in the context of all of the evidence that's presented, not just what the state puts.
That was the point that Georgia was making with one of your witnesses in cross-examination, where she completely destroyed her. It's like, why are you here? Why do we care about your opinion? Why don't we let the jury decide?
But what the defense puts in. And I know at some point when we were putting on evidence, you all were looking probably at me like, what are you doing? Who cares? Some of those little things matter, and I'm going to cover those in the defense, and you'll see why we put those things in that didn't seem like that I had a hoot to do with anything, because they actually did. Now,
what the fuck? Why is she going so strong on the jury like this? You guys were looking at me like, what the fuck what I was doing? Well, let me tell you this. Like, oh my gosh. Mr. Zellman, we want Mr. Zellman. I can't imagine Mr. Zellman with the energy this strong.
And I know at some point when we were putting on evidence, you all were looking probably at me like, what are you doing? Who cares? I think the state, near the beginning of the case, and I don't recall who the witness was, but near the beginning of the case.
You don't recall who the witness was? Were you not paying attention? You're doing the closing. You don't remember who the witness was? Did you not plan out your closing? Couldn't you find out who that witness was? By the way, these videos are all on YouTube. You can go back and look at the transcript. You can hit Control F, and then you can find some keywords to figure out who it was.
The state, through a law enforcement officer, elicited testimony about how this event transpired, this brutal killing of Danny Markell, how it transpired, and how they were able to break the case. And what did they tell you? They told you they broke the case because Luis Rivera, who was one of the killers, decided he would cooperate with the state of Florida in exchange for a deal, which for his crime, he ended up, the testimony was, he got 7 more years for committing that crime. This is the man who got in the car, got the gun off the street, drove up to Tallahassee, Florida, stalked, is the best way I can describe it, Danny Markel in a car with his children. So leading up to his death, she's arguing with him over about an hour and a half worth of time that she thinks she's entitled to with the kids, but it's his time. And I agree with the state of Florida. The most important thing to that man was those little boys. Then he drives home in his car while he's on the phone, and Luis Rivera, driving the car that's been stalking him all day, pulls up behind him in his driveway. Sigfredo Garcia gets out and shoots him twice in the head, and they pull off at a pretty high rate of speed and leave Danny Markel dying inside his garage. Catherine Magbanois is the person that elicited Sigfredo.
She said, Catherine Magbanois. Well, remember how Georgia explains the installation? How it was a train car and it wasn't the fucking hexagon? I think I'm just so mind blown with Jackie right now. I'm a lost at words. Okay. Remember how Georgia explains the installation of each of the people that were involved? Because you don't want everyone to know everything, and then you don't want everyone to communicate with each other. You want everyone to be insulated just in case one person gets caught and they decide to snitch on the other person. So for the fact that the person that was at the bottom of the tier, not knowing that Donna was involved or Harvey was involved, yeah, I could probably buy that. He was insulated by Charlie and by Katie and by Garcia.
Garcia to kill Danny Markel. Now her versions change over time, so we'll have to address a few of those. And then she says she didn't even know Luis Rivera was involved. Who else on this document do you recognize? On this exhibit? Who else? Who else was involved in this? Well,
maybe Jackie has taken a lot of shit these past couple of days and she's just venting it all out right now on the jury and on the little podium.
And I said, well, what about Donna Adelson or Harvey Adelson? No, they weren't involved. I said, would you put an X next to them if they weren't involved? And he did. There's some issues that I might address further, but I want to go through some of the things that the state stood up and told you. Relocation, relocation, relocation. That's the issue. That is the reason that my client had Danny Markel killed, because relocation was lost. Relocation was done for over a year. That's the motive? It's been over for a year, and they said yesterday in court that the relocation issue didn't stop when Danny Markel was, when the divorce was over. It continued going on. The emails showed that. There is not a single email that's been put in by the state that shows that my client, Donna Adelson, was continuing on a rampage about relocation. The last email that they showed you today that my client wrote about relocation was July the 19th of 2013. The divorce was final on the 31st, said and done. They bring Wendi Adelson in here to testify. That's their witness. And she said it was done. Now, have Charlie Adelson and Wendi Adelson been honest?
Not to Donna, though. Donna was like, the Adelsons will never lose or something. We will never, he would never beat us. To Donna, it was not done.
Wendi Adelson admitted in her testimony she's sending these messages to her life coach and telling her life coach, you know, I think I want to stay in Tallahassee. But she didn't bother to tell her mother that. Her mother still thinks she's trying to get relocation. She does it in April. And then she writes to her again in May. I think I'm going to give up relocation. I can stay in Tallahassee. The kids will be close to their boys. There won't be any plane rides. And I like my job. It gives me all this flexibility. I'm going to stay. But she still doesn't tell her mother. She has her mother believing we got to fight for this relocation. She testified. Well, I said, why did your mother get so upset? Well, she's venting to her mother about what she claims Danny Markel is doing. And she's venting to her mother about what she wants to accomplish. Only she's not being honest with her. On the backside, she's making other plans. It'd have been nice for my client, Donna Adelson, to know that, because these emails that have been submitted here, which are proof that she wanted to have Danny Markel killed, would not have been written. And when she goes to her hearing on the relocation...
Maybe Wendi couldn't be honest to Donna because Donna was such a dominating force that Wendi was just like, okay, Mom, you do your thing. I'm just gonna, pretend like I'm agreeing with you. But really, in reality, I've already accepted it. I'm trying to buy a house here. I don't want to move here. I do think that was a lie, though. I think when Wendi was writing that email, I think she was just trying to make it so it's set up in writing somewhere that she didn't really care about moving to South Florida, just in case if the state was ever going to go after her. I think she was just trying to make sure that whatever she did, she looked good and not involved in killing Dan Markel. Now, Jackie's going to explain away the unhinged emails that Donna wrote. Essentially, this is like the Nazi stuff, the converting the children over to Christianity. The defense does... I can't believe they pulled this. I mean, I guess it's pretty typical, but she's essentially saying, well, Donna's only being charged for murder because of these emails.
And that's what those emails say. They do suggest some crazy stuff. They do.
They do.
But she puts in there, we're trying to negotiate. We're trying to negotiate. Get this, you can still work on this. She doesn't know when she's writing those crazy emails that there's no reason to write them because her daughter agreed. You know, you can have a dismissal on an issue. You can have a denial on an issue. She agreed to it with prejudice, which means it is over.
Nope. Your very own witness testified, the attorney, Wendy's attorney, she testified saying that she explained to Wendy and then she explained to Wendy and Donna and Harvey. So you're telling me that your own witness that you called up, she didn't do a good job at lawyering and explaining to the client and the client's family that with prejudice just means that you're fucked. I'm sorry, you can't follow this again. You called the witness. I don't know why you even called the witness.
She already made an agreement. She's not going to seek relocation anymore. So my client is hanging out there trying to support her daughter, and now she's sitting in a court of law charged with murder because of what she wrote in emails. Because the truth is, you are here to judge my client based on her conduct leading up to and to the time of death of Danny Markel. That's her conduct. Now, my client did say ugly things about Danny Markel. During the divorce, she did.
She said Donna charged for murder just because of the damn email.
She said some really bad names, and I'm going to say them.
Why? Jackie, why? Georgia has already done this. Why are you reminding the jury over and over again?
Some ugly stuff. The first one that they wanted to put in was from 2011.
Okay.
He was killed in 2014. They introduced this email from March the 28th of 2011 at 64A. And inside that email, they claim, shows the hatred for Danny Markel. And you want to know why? Mrs. Adelson referred to Danny's parents as, quote, the royal couple. And she and Wendy were bantering back and forth about some issues with Mr. Markel's parents. That's not hatred on Danny. It's not even hatred on his parents.
I don't know. It kind of just shows that your client is sort of an asshole.
We're sitting here with murder charges. Because she did something like that, called somebody a royal couple. She said other bad things. She called Danny a major fucker, Gibbers, which Wendy Adelson testified that she came up with that nickname for him, a religious zealot, and Wendy testified that the issues in their marriage included matters of he had now become more strict in their religion than she wanted to follow. That was one of their problems. She called him a royal jackass, a piece of shit, a fucker, crazy, a bastard, and she called him Elvis. That's why we are sitting here today. That is hatred for somebody. That proves they wanted to have him killed. Are you serious? You call somebody some bad names and that means you wanted them dead? My client has lack of any ability to stop herself from saying things. She can't do it. And I'm not trying to be offensive to her, but she can't. And all of these emails that they have introduced prove it. She is not a one-word person. She goes on and on and on and on. And
doesn't that, she doesn't have the control and the wherewithal to hold herself back from calling names. You know, that could also be applied to her anger. It could also be applied to her wanting to fight for the relocation. It could also be applied to her can't helping herself and wanting to have Dan Markel murdered. What the fuck is his closing?
They believe that she had Danny Markel murdered because she said some bad words. There's not a lick of evidence in here that they submitted of what she did prior to July the 18th, 2014, where she said not a single word, that she wanted him killed, she was planning to have him killed, she was going to find somebody to kill him, she was going to pay somebody to kill him, she was going to kill him, that she was glad he was dead. That's not in here. And this is it. This is it. Before he was killed. You're judging her conduct before he died, up to his death. And that's all you've got. And I told you that in the opening statement. They have a lot of theories, and they like to spin evidence a certain way to make her look bad because she said ugly things. That is not proof. of somebody having somebody killed. And that.
All right, she's repeating herself a lot here. I guess doing it for emphasis, or maybe doing it because she has no other, nothing else, like no other substantial thing to say, maybe. Again, remember, the defense wanted to remove the lesser included, so no second-degree murder, no premeditation. So the state has to prove that, no second-degree murder and no manslaughter. The state has to prove that it was first degree with premeditation. So Jack is really attacking, like, hey, before Dan Markel was murdered, you just have these nasty emails with Donna. That's it. She just said some ugly words. She can't help herself. They ain't got nothing else on her. Yeah, she's like yelling at them.
Besides the relocation issue, which has been dead for over a year before he's killed. Bad choice of words, I apologize. It had ended over a year before he was killed. Now they want to bring in something called the grandmother motion. This is what had to push her over the edge. Their own witnesses said she didn't know about it. Let's see who testified to that.
Actually, I think I could turn Jackie down a little bit. Let me turn her down because she's like yelling in my ear. All right. I'm turning it down just a tiny bit, so you guys may need to adjust on your end.
Wendy testified, her daughter, that she never showed it to her and she never talked to her about it. But then there were two more witnesses for the state, and they were Craig Isom and Jason Newland. And when they testified on cross, they admitted that there was no evidence that that motion had ever been forwarded to my client. Not a single piece of evidence. What if she had gotten it? Do you want to know what it accuses her of? That a 3- and 4-year-old said that they called Abba, that she had called Abba stupid. Stupid. And that drove her over the edge? One, she didn't know about it, but two, somebody claiming you said the word stupid? That's what brings us to murder charges?
I'm sorry, but Wendy had been forwarding all the other motions and all the other stuff, and Donna was like heavily involved. She was writing stuff, she was writing the drafts, giving it to Wendy. So you're telling me now Wendy decides to not include the mom into it? Okay. It's not just this driving her over the edge. It was a culmination of the divorce stuff happening for what, like a year plus? But okay. Man, she's really reminding the jury just what a bad person Donna is. Well, let's get over to them blaming it on Charlie. That Charlie's the one that orchestrated all this. It's Charlie's fault.
It's unbelievable. But that's their spin that they want to put on it. Because they've got this theory that she's the mastermind. And then they stand up here in their closing and they say,
I feel like the jury is probably thinking, you're unbelievable. The spin that you're putting on it.
everybody has been charged in this case, so they want to point at the other one, and point at the other one, and point at the other one. No, 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 no. Who is pointing at these people? The state of Florida. Charlie Adelson is not on trial. You may be sitting in that jury room thinking, well, Charlie did it, and it sure looks like Wendy did it. That doesn't have an ounce to do with Donna Adelson doing a thing. Not a single thing. If you think he did it, he's been convicted. He admitted in his testimony that he is the person, although he claims he was extorted, he is the person that took $138,000 out of his refrigerator-size safe that he has at his house with the money exactly like he says he kept it, stapling $100 bills together in stacks of 1,000, staple, 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 staple. He said he took that money out of his safe and he gave it to Catherine McBanois that night. Whether that's his girlfriend and they're still fooling around on the side, that's between the two of them. That's got nothing to do with my client. He did it. But now they want to say Donna Adelson did it.
He did it.
Pick one. You don't like our theory? That's what they say. You don't like our theory? Oh, well, you like our theory on everybody else. Pick one.
I thought this theory was always consistent, that Donna dropped off the money and that Charlie was the one that paid. I don't know. Maybe it was a different theory back then.
If you have prosecuted Charlie Adelson for paying the $138,000 stapled just like their other witnesses in this case said, why are they now saying Donna Adelson provided the money? Oh, wait. Oh, because Catherine McBanois, who's been sentenced to life and is telling her sixth story now, has decided she'd like to see her kids someday. So now she's going to come in and provide information that will help the state prosecute an innocent woman so she can go home to her children.
You think she's going to talk about Katie's boobs? Wait, I thought the timeline of Katie, I thought Katie was the one who said Donna was the one that dropped off the money before Charlie's trial, though. Not after. I thought it was after Katie was convicted that she decided to work with the state and then give the state more details.
That's what that's about. So she claims that this all goes down. Charlie puts the money, Charlie, not Donna, Charlie puts the money stapled just like she knows he does into her trunk. She drives it the next day to Sigfredo Garcia, her baby daddy. He takes it out of the trunk, and a day or two later, she gets hers back. And she says he puts it in her closet, and to this day, she wants you to believe that that money sat in her closet, but to this day, she wants you to believe she has absolutely no idea how much money she had. Never counted it. Really?
And you know what? I agree with her on that point. We don't believe Katie. I think Jackie will make maybe a great fervent prosecutor because the way that she's talking about Katie, Charlie, I feel like this would be great if Charlie and Katie were the ones that are being prosecuted here.
She must think y'all was born yesterday.
And
but
you.
Here's something. She's got this new thing she wants to testify to.
And Donna.
That the money was wet. And Charlie told her that Donna had washed it. Her money's wet, that she hasn't touched, that's been somewhere else for these number of days. Well, what did Luis Rivera testify to about his money that he got? He said it was weird. Well, how was it weird? Well, it was stapled in $100 bills, stacks of 1,000. Not a single word about wet, and he got his money before she did. He got it straight from Sigfredo. This washing money wet thing is nonsense, and they've already proven that it was Charlie Adelson's money that was paid through Katie Magbanawa to those two killers. Whoops, it's gone.
I think she's doing a good job at trying to discredit Katie in front of the jurors. It's like, are you going to believe her? Look how many times she's lied. Look at what she has to possibly gain from this.
And I'm not sure what this is all about. The state standing up saying that the defense has suggested that Harvey is the one that did the evite. We haven't said a single word, presented any evidence, or made any argument that Harvey Adelson is the one who created the evite. Their witness that they called, Wendi Adelson, sat up there and said, what did she say? She probably did it because her mom doesn't know how. And then their other witness, Chris Corbett, Sergeant Corbett, who does all the media and cell phone tower stuff, he sat up there and he said it was clear to him from his research and investigation that my client, Donna Adelson, didn't have a clue how to work that.
For the planner, I feel like it was a little bit of a stretch, especially with Charlie and the disability thing. I guess it's possible. Wouldn't they have canceled Charlie's disability insurance when he was convicted? Or would the lie be, oh, well, we wanted to make sure he was truly convicted because he had a possibility of getting out and we didn't want to cancel his insurance? I don't know.
And there's a notation in there shortly after Charlie is convicted that says cancel disability insurance. They want you to take what they believe that means as they were canceling their insurance because they were going away and never coming back. Could it be? Those were the words that were used. This is not a could it be situation. This is beyond a reasonable doubt. They have nothing other than that notation. Well, could it be that Charlie was convicted and he no longer needed disability insurance because he was going to prison for life?
Charlie was on disability? Huh?
Just as likely.
Just as likely, she says.
How about this? Could it be? Could it be?
She's so pissed.
At 142 on the front page that they showed you with this little notation. Notify.
Let me tell you something. Yesterday when Georgia was doing the cross-examination, she was like really turned up, okay, when she was doing cross of the that attorney. Oh my gosh, we're getting a version of that with Jackie.
Everyone who was invited to the 70th birthday, that party is off if that's what HJ decides to do. And that's on June the 13th. Could it be, the state says to you, that if the killing had actually taken place the first time the killers came up, then they'd be canceling the party because Danny would already be dead? What? Does that, where is
Could it be that it was code word for canceling the hit on Dan Markel?
the proof of any of this? Could that be what it means? This is not, could it be? And a birthday present. The birthday present, according to the state, for a 70-year-old man is that they're going to have Danny Markel killed. Happy birthday. Let's have a party.
Yeah.
What?
And then she goes after Rob Adelson, the son.
Let's talk about Rob Adelson. They brought him in here and he got up there and he testified on the stand about allegedly all of these things that he claims his mother said.
Allegedly. Why she say it
If
like
you were
that?
paying attention by the time we got to cross-examination, what did we learn about Rob Adelson? He's a doctor, and he's got little kids, so he's real busy, which is his explanation for why he rarely speaks to his family on the telephone and has, in that time period, only been down to see his family 2 times in a 2.5-year period.
Yeah. He said he had like, was it like a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old or something like that? Yeah. It's probably really busy. He's a doctor. He's just got 2 kids. And I remember Jackie was trying to make a point like, oh, well, how often did you see your parents? Well, you know what else he said? I talk to my mom every week. That's a lot.
And he rarely talks to him on the phone, but somehow Miss Adelson has made all of these comments. This is a guy with an axe to grind, right? He doesn't have any of this information. He's not talking to him.
Why would he have an axe to grind against his parents? Uh-oh. What is Jackie going to say now?
They got him to come for the birthday party, and what was his testimony? He's a busy guy. He flew in the night before the birthday. He was at the birthday party and got up the next morning, packed his bags, and put him and his wife and his kids on an airplane and left because he was busy.
Okay.
He's not hanging out with his family.
Yeah, because they're crazy.
He's nowhere to be found. Oh, but you got to believe everything he tells you. A huge percentage of the argument of the state was, well, what did Rob say? What did Rob? Rob doesn't have.
Do you think it's unreasonable for a man who is a doctor married with 2 little young kids to only see his family 2 times in 2 years? She said that he was a doctor. I don't know what was the point and the emphasis of that. He's a doctor. Okay, we know doctors are busy. Yeah, but if she was like, I don't know, he's a YouTuber or something, like maybe someone with a flexible schedule. I don't know where she was going with that. And then she also has to flesh out the man has an axe to grind. What is the axe to grind with his family?
Oh, but you got to believe everything he tells you. A huge percentage of the argument of the state was, well, what did Rob say? What did Rob? Rob doesn't have the knowledge of anybody. He's not here. He lives in Albany, New York, and he's not around these people. But let's use her son, who's clearly estranged from the family, to try and bury her.
Why is he estranged, though?
You're smarter than that.
Why is he estranged?
And just like I said in opening, what the state thinks happened does not matter. What they believe happened does not matter. What spin they want to put on it does not matter.
I feel like she could replace the word state with a defense and it'll make even more sense. It doesn't matter what the defense thinks. It doesn't matter what the defense experts think. It doesn't matter how the defense spins the story.
She's a parent. She's just being a parent, not a killer. She's a meddler, not a murderer. They haven't proven that to you. What they didn't want you to see in this email, you see that highlighted part? If she thinks she's going to have him killed, why is she telling her daughter in mediation, make sure in the final order that he has to pay half of this expense and half of that expense and extracurricular activities and tennis lesson and baseball teams and travel? Well, who cares?
When did the mediation happen again? Was it before, like a year before, right?
If they're going to kill him, why is she writing that? Negotiate. Shame on her to get involved in her daughter's divorce. Negotiate. Let him know that you want him to see his children. And they talk a lot about this.
So you're saying that she wasn't involved, but then now you're showing how involved she was? I don't know. Just pick one. You guys are kind of all over the place. Now, I do think Jackie does make a pretty decent point in this next portion, and I wish I saw more of this in the cross-examination. Essentially, if the state is going to make an accusation about Donna, we'll spin it in a way where it's like, well, it doesn't really make sense that it would happen this way because of X, Y, and Z.
My client watched the boys while both parents were out of town. And my client facilitated the Skype with the grandsons for Mr. Markell. Now, if he's really worried about her having unsupervised contact, is he going to leave him with her for almost 2 weeks in April? And he does it again and again. And the last time that he does it is on July the 11th. That's according to Wendy. He comes home and he needs help. She's going to go do something, and then now it's his time to have the children. So he asked my client, Mrs. Adelson, if she could watch the boys, and she does.
Maybe at that point, he thought that Wendy talked to the mom and was like, hey, tell your grandmother or tell your mom to stop saying shit to the kids. Otherwise, bad things are going to happen, right? And maybe Wendy was like, yeah, I talked to my mom. She won't do it anymore. And he's like, okay, cool.
And she knows he likes this particular kind of banana bread that she makes, and they're going to mock us for this, but that's okay. He likes this particular kind of banana bread. It's got chocolate chips in it and no nuts. And so what did my client do? Before he came to...
I think she's been watching a lot of YouTube or Twitter or something like that, and they're going to mock us for this, but I don't care. Let's just act like YouTube is in here, Jackie. Let's act like Twitter is in here. Maybe she's reading tweets.
And they're going to mock us for this, but that's okay. He likes this particular kind of banana bread. It's got chocolate chips in it and no nuts. And so what did my client do? Before he came to pick up the boys the next morning, the evening before, she makes him a loaf. But she hates him. She hates him and she wants him dead.
I wouldn't be surprised if she like put her hair in there and like spit in it or something like that, you know? That like Midsommar shit.
The state has said that my client tried to set up an alibi for her daughter. I don't know how it could have ever been considered an alibi because the man was going to get there at 8 o'clock in the morning and the evidence is he got killed around 11 o'clock.
This portion I was very unsure of. They start playing Wendy's police interview where she decides to call Donna and break the news that Dan Markel has been shot. And she tells the jury to put on their headphones and listen very carefully because although you can't hear Donna's reaction, you can hear a little bit of it. Like you can't hear the words, but you can hear. And although you can't hear what Donna is saying, you can sort of sense the reaction. I just feel like this police interview, I just feel like when they listen to this, they see how almost rehearsed Wendy looks. I feel like when they're watching this, if they're watching this, they can probably see. I feel like if they're watching this, it's possible they might see this and think that Wendy looks really rehearsed when she's delivering the lines to her mom. I don't really see how this is really beneficial to them in any way.
So, I know. So I found this out around 1 or 2 today, and I'm at the police station, and I'm trying to help them figure out who may have done this. The boys are fine. I had Lynn and Ellen pick them up from school, and they're with Lynn and Ellen right now.
Why does this sound like Wendy's just reading a script?
And I'm gonna leave here soon and go be with them. But I really need you to come here.
This is so scripted. Isn't it so weird how usually if you hear something like this happens, who did it? What do you think happened? Where was he? You don't hear any of that. Wendy's just reading the script because Donna on the other end is genuinely not curious. Jackie's going to go after the investigator who does this drive that apparently Donna and Harvey does on the night that they found out that Dan Markel was shot. And it is a good point that, you know, this was 11 years later. Who knows if the roads are still the same? But still, it's hard to combat Donna's text message.
Did you take any snacks when you did the ride? And he's only doing part of it. Well, yeah. Did you get some coffee? Yeah. But they've calculated this drive for these folks who have just received horrible news and they're clearly upset about it, that they had to be at their son's house dropping off money that was washed because there's a period of time that it takes them longer to get to their hotel in Orlando than it should have. They took into consideration nothing with respect to their age, that they hadn't had anything to eat. They didn't calculate any time in to stop and get gas or to use the restroom or to maybe sit down and have a meal. None of that's counted in. It's got to be a strict from here to there, and you're not there, then you must be doing something bad, and it must have something.
No, we just have, you know, the text message where she says outside your house, and she's like, I didn't go to Charlie's house. Defense is saying they didn't go to Charlie's house. They should have just been like, yeah, she went to Charlie's house. They went to talk to Charlie really quick, be like, hey, we're going to go pick up Wendy, blah, 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 blah. Like, I don't know, just say that you're at Charlie's house. That way you don't have to come up with this really convoluted way of explaining that. How are you going to explain the text? Yeah, well, outside your house, it doesn't really mean outside your house. It's legal for something else.
If Mrs. Adelson was at Charlie's house, what in the world is she doing hanging outside for over 30 minutes before he gets there? She's got the garage door code to get in. But she's outside the house? They introduced this.
Well, maybe because she wants to personally give him $100,000. Maybe she doesn't want to just drop off $100,000 without Charlie actually being there to receive it. It's $100,000. We want to make sure that someone's there to take it. I don't know. It's not a big deal. This is how the defense presents how Donna was essentially trying to help Charlie of the extortion and that it wasn't Donna that was paying because she had hired Charlie and then the hitman. They're being extorted.
They got nothing to show that my client was involved in any way leading up to the time that he was killed. But they elicited the testimony that it was 2 months after the murder when Charlie Adelson discloses for the first time to his mother what he knows about the case. Now, all she knows is what he's telling her, but it's 2 months after the murder when he's telling her, well, what happened was I got a girlfriend, and I had told her about this $1 million offer, and she said it in front of some of her friends, and they've gone up there and killed Danny Markell, and now they're demanding money. And so they said if I didn't turn over my third of the $1 million, this is what he claims that they elicited, if I didn't turn over that money, then I'd be dead in 48 hours or they'll kill my family. So he goes into his safe and pulls out $138,000 cash, puts it in a bag, gives it to Katie, tells his mother 2 months after the homicide.
I thought it was $100,000.
Now he's being extorted. She works at Adelson Institute. They want you to believe this is a family business. Does family work there? Clearly. But who owns the business? Who does the money belong to? Who is Mrs. Adelson writing and paying all the bills for? Who's she doing the salary for? Everybody there. Everybody there.
But everyone else there, they were actually working at the office. You're telling me she's writing checks for someone that wasn't working in the office? She never saw?
So he tells her, write around $1,000 a month to Katie Magbanawa. It'll save my life.
So Charlie was the one that brought Donna into this? Charlie made his mom involved by making her write the checks? Now, I want to hop on over to my favorite part of Jackie's closing, and I think she does a really good job at spinning it a little bit differently. And I wish, like I said, I wish she did more of this in cross-examination. Felt like the cross was just kind of like, wah, wah, wah.
Her son told her in September of 2014 that he got extorted. He has to pay this money. He has paid the money, and he's going to keep paying the money so he doesn't get killed. Right? Now somebody has walked up to her on the street about the exact same subject, Mr. Markell being killed, and demanding $5,000 from her. So now he's brought her into this. It is the two of them. They're not knocking on his door. They're coming up to her on the street. They're sending her text messages. They're sending letters. They're calling.
Huh, okay, that's a very interesting explanation of the it involves the two of us.
So now he's brought her into this. It is the two of them. They're not knocking on his door. They're coming up to her on the street. They're sending her text messages. They're sending letters. They're calling. They won't stop. But she didn't do anything. If her son did, that's on him, not her. There's no evidence that if Charlie Adelson had not told her in September of 2014 what he told her, there's no evidence that she would know anything at all about what happened. That's her single source. And he brought it to her.
So I like how she twisted the it involves the two of us. Although when you look at the grand scheme of it, it doesn't really make sense. Anyways, Jackie's wrapping up, and here's what we got.
The premeditated intent to kill must be formed before the killing. They've got no evidence of her doing anything until after Mr. Markell is dead, when she writes the checks at the instruction of her son. To Catherine Magbanawa, Sigfredo Garcia, or Luis Rivera. Her link to Charlie Adelson is it's her son. They like to show those little arrows going back and forth like it's a train, I think they said. This isn't a train. This is somebody's life. Danny Markell's life. And now
that she took, and then the train thing. I mean, we saw it in the wiretaps. We saw how the communication went. I don't know. If the state gave a really wobbly analogy, then attack the fucking analogy. But the train analogy was excellent.
now Donna Adelson's life. This isn't cute. This isn't powdered sugar. They have charged my client with first-degree murder. Conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. Solicitation of the people to kill. And their example is she's got powdered sugar all over her. No, she doesn't. They want you to believe it. That's their theory. But a theory doesn't prove a crime. They have to present evidence, and they haven't done that. So this is February the 5th of 1950. And the state says, oh, well, she was going to be gone past the date of the bar mitzvah. This visa allows them to come home, and if they want to go back, go back. Now, here's something really important. The state said that we're trying to tell you she was going on vacation. That's not true. Her prior attorney testified that before there was a conviction, she was very upset and said she wanted to kill herself if her son was convicted. And her husband was concerned about her doing that, so he wanted to get her away, to clear her head so that she wouldn't take such a drastic step. That's not a vacation. Over 2,000 phone calls during that 2-month period, recorded, text messages, bank records. They got experts analyzing all of this stuff. They got cell tower records, and I don't even understand all that stuff, but it supposedly can place you in places.
I don't understand that stuff. Ma'am, that's the type of evidence that you're supposed to go over and understand for the sake of your client. Maybe there's like a lot of people on the jury that looks like they might be a little bit older and not into technology, but as an attorney, why are you saying that, ma'am? I feel like any future client might be like, oh, we're not hiring Jackie. She doesn't understand cell phone tower stuff and technology. Ugh.
They've been working on this case, according to Agent Sanford, right up until the time he was sitting on the stand, still investigating Donna Adelson. If you were going to have proof that Donna Adelson committed a crime, you should have had it beyond a reasonable doubt before you put handcuffs on her in the Miami International Airport. They still didn't even know that day if they were going to arrest her. In all the evidence they have collected, she can't help herself but run her mouth. Not a single email, no phone.
Jackie heard us. She knows that we were dozing off, so she wanted to ramp up her voice a little bit. Mom's yelling at me again.
Not a single email, no phone calls that are recorded, no written documents, no emails, not one single thing that said anything about wanting Danny Markell killed. The most aggressive thing they have are her foul words and wanting to aggravate him. This is not, could she possibly have done it? Could she probably have done it? Might she have done it? You have been sitting here hearing testimony for almost 2 weeks, and there's not a single piece of evidence that connects my client to that murder. Charlie Adelson? Yep. Potentially Wendi Adelson? She's the one who said she hated him. She's the one fighting with him in court.
But Donna also said that she hated him. Donna was also technically fighting him in court because she was doing it through Wendi.
How did Donna Adelson feel about Dan Markell in 2014?
I mean, she hated him.
This is so bad for your client. Why would you say this?
She's the one who said she hated him. She's the one fighting with him in court. Donna Adelson, nothing. Not a...
She said she hated him and she was also fighting him in court.
A single piece of evidence. You have to find her not guilty because they have failed to do their job on all 3 counts.
Oh, what a wild whirlwind of a closing argument. Now, the state is going to get a chance for a rebuttal because Georgia is probably like perplexed right now addressing some of Jackie's closing statements.
I think outside your house means outside your house. But apparently outside your house means something else. A one-way non-extradition ticket to Vietnam? It's not fleeing. It's a setup. How did I set her up? I didn't make her do that. I didn't get her a fast-track visa. I didn't get her a one-way ticket. She did that. She made those choices. Look in the emails. She was giving up, and Donna wasn't having it. That's when she gets the totally unhinged email from her mother suggesting, you're not going to give up. You want to move on with a sense of peace? Hell no, we're going to fight this guy. We're going to dress your kids up as Nazis. That's what happened when when Wendi suggested giving up. Never, never, never give up, right? This murder charge is not based on the fact that she said some bad words. I mean, I'd be facing murder just in this courtroom. Obviously, people. That is not what this case is about. You've got to look at all the evidence. I mean, it is death by 1,000 cuts. It is powdered sugar. You've got to look at the whole thing and make a decision. And I'm sorry that there's not a smoking gun, but she was too smart for that. She thought about it. She planned it. She made sure we could never get her, right? She took precautions, but she did make mistakes. And that's what all those exhibits are.
Mistakes.
Mistakes. The only complaint from a 3- and 4-year-old was, Grandma says you're stupid. Oh, that's dumb. Well, no, I remember that the kid also said, Grandma hates you. Rob has an axe to grind. Mary Hull said that the Adelson Institute was Charlie's until 2022. Not my recollection, but hopefully you remember that it changed hands in 2015. Catherine Mybanoa told us when I got to Charlie's, he told me his parents had just come, right? And brought the money. But when we looked in the records, there's a text outside your house corroborating what she said. That's important. She was outside his house. Oh, well, she had the garage code. Why didn't she go in? I don't know if she went in. Maybe she did. She told him, I'm outside your house. He said 10 minutes. It's going to be there in 10 minutes. Maybe she did go in. I don't know. But she was there. That I do know. What's the pushback on extortion? Her behavior on the wire. She doesn't say, oh my gosh, it's happening again. She doesn't say anything about the prior extortion. If the prior extortion had occurred, she would immediately tell him it's happening again, or some reference to the fact that this is something that's been ongoing. She doesn't do that. Instead, she talks in code. It's a TV. What the heck? Why are you talking in code? Her Googling extortion versus blackmail 7 days before Charlie's trial.
Right. And if you're the one that's being extorted, why would you talk in code about it? If you were the one doing the extorting, then yeah, maybe you would talk in code. But you're the victim here. Why talk in code?
That wouldn't happen if the extortion was real. She wasn't extorted. Charlie didn't tell her there was an extortion because there never was an extortion. She was paying for a murder. She knew it was going to be a murder. She's the one that wanted it done. Her discussion of Charlie's lawyers meeting with Garcia's lawyers. What? If she was being extorted by Garcia and Charlie was being extorted and his life being threatened by Garcia, their lawyers aren't going to be meeting up. Look at those text messages. She said, bring cash. They say, oh, that's not code. She said, bring cash. She literally said, bring cash for dinner on that call. It's not a hint. It's a code word. They say the bump failed. I say the bump succeeded. She said it involved the two of us. That was before we got made, before that Matt Surrey operation where they literally see the camera in the bag and know the camera's in the bag. Yeah, she called and put on a great show.
Wait, they literally saw the camera in the bag? The Matsuri stuff was really hard to hear and see because they put the bag in this like perforated, it was like a perforated bag, some type of thing, like a little bowler bag of some sort. And then you couldn't really hear, you couldn't really see. I didn't know they got made because of that. I just thought it was suspicious that they thought it was suspicious that a guy decided to sit next to them at a bar and maybe it wasn't crowded or something like that. Oh no.
When she called the undercover, but what did she say in the first call, the second call and the third call before we got made, before she knew it was law enforcement? She said it involves the two of us, both of us. Those little boys lost their father. Look what she says in 64T. Children are 2 and 3. Children do not even have a memory of life before age 5 or 6. Look what she says in 64II when Wendy is concerned. This is 2 years after the murder. Her child is having trouble at school, crying because he misses his father. And this woman, this nice grandmother, innocent woman, says, quote, I still do not believe that Ben is sad about his father. Quotations on the sad. What about the script? They didn't even talk about the script. She wrote a script for a witness that was perjured testimony about, based on a lie, an extortion lie that's been proven in court to you to be false. This defendant tried to erase Dan Markell, thinking there would be no harm to those little boys. They don't have a memory of their father. They feel the absence of their father. This defendant decided they didn't need their dad. She doesn't get to decide that. She wanted it done. She brought the money. She stroked the check. She didn't have to do that. Charlie was a signatory, had signing
Ooh, could we not talk about Donna stroking anything?
power on that account. He could have written the checks. She wrote the checks. Why? Because she was neck deep in this thing. She wrote the checks. She said it involved the two of us. She wrote that script. May you have the strength and the common sense to see this evidence for what it is. It's only one thing. There's only one truth. It can't all be right. It's only one truth. Render a verdict that does justice. Find her guilty. Thank you.
Oh, that was a lot. Now, they send the jury back to deliberate, and I honestly thought the jury were going to leave after 5:30 because that's usually the time they leave the latest. However, I forgot. I think in Florida, they make the jury deliberate for a very long time because that's what happened in, I think, the Sarah Boone case, right? I think the jury deliberate past like 6 until like late into the evening. Or am I thinking of Lori Vallow? But anyways, they deliberate until around like 6, 7, their local time. Total time deliberation is probably about 2 to 3 hours. And they come back with a verdict. And Donna just looks really, really nervous. This was probably the best verdict reaction I've ever seen of someone that I felt was guilty. Hello, everyone. Well, it seems like the jury already has a verdict. Donna looks like a nervous mess. And honestly, they came back with the verdict pretty quickly, but she looks worried.
If the jury foreperson could please rise. Has the jury reached a unanimous verdict? If you please can hand the verdict form to the bailiff. We, the jury, find as follows as the count 1 of the indictment, first-degree murder. The defendant is guilty of first-degree murder. Mrs. Adelson, control yourself. Count 2. We, the jury, find as follows as the count 2 of the indictment, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. The defendant is guilty of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. Count 3. We, the jury, find as follows as the count 3 of the indictment, solicitation to commit first-degree murder. The defendant is guilty of solicitation to commit first-degree murder. And it is signed and dated by the foreperson. One moment. Members of the jury, the bailiff will escort you to the jury room.
You deserve this, Donna. You fucking deserve this. You had 11 years of freedom. Or I guess 10 years of freedom? 9 years?
Mrs. Adelson, while this was not the outcome I'm sure that you desired, there will not be any further outbursts in front of the jury. If you cannot control yourself, I am going to have to determine if you will be removed from the remainder of this process. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? Do you need a moment to collect yourself? Before the jurors are brought back in, we will take a brief 2-minute break. Please give her tissues if she needs them.
Please put a bag over her face. She deserves this. Wow, I didn't expect...
Jurors are brought back into the room. Does the defense wish to have the jurors polled before they are discharged?
Yes, Your Honor.
Very well.
I didn't expect her to act this way because I'm so used to wanting to get a reaction from the defendant and then getting nothing for a verdict. I mean, Charles was a pretty good reaction. Wow, this is quite satisfying. And I hope the Markells can watch this later on and just see Donna's reaction. Donna really thought she was gonna get off? Did she not realize how bad the defense was? Did she not realize how bad the explanation was? Wow.
Please bring back the jurors so we can conclude with their portion of the trial.
She's probably... Corey, if you use any of the screen clips as your wallpaper at lunch, that's describing. I'll just hack into your computer and put it in your screensaver. Don't worry, I got you. I got my corgis to work on it. Look at the paralegal next to her trying to comfort Donna. She's like, there. Listen, Harvey, if you knew about this, if you knew this...
To the jury's verdict, with the jury having found the defendant guilty of the 3 charges of the indictment, is the defense asking for a pre-sentence report on counts 2 and 3. As to count 1, the penalty is statutory, and essentially there is no modification for it.
Yes, Your Honor.
Is there any reason why we cannot proceed to sentencing on this matter?
Your Honor, we would request an opportunity to ensure that our client is okay before we proceed to sentencing. It's my understanding that Charlie Adelson wasn't sentenced right away. We're asking for the same courtesy.
Very well.
At this point, they are going to do sentencing at a different date, but they are going to let victim impact statements in because the Markells, I believe since they're Canadian, they probably live in Canada. They probably don't want to fly back and forth. So it's actually kind of nice that the judge is letting them do the statement today. Now, you can see Donna in the background reacting to the Markells statement, shaking her head, just making these faces at them. Honestly, it's really disrespectful. And I know she feels really horrible right now for the verdict, but it really just goes to show that Donna only cares about herself. Me. Doesn't care about other people. Has no sympathy whatsoever. Sorry, my dog says hi. He's over here.
My name is Ruth Markel.
You may give your impact statement, ma'am.
Thank you, Judge Everett. To the Honorable Judge Everett, my name is Ruth Markel. I am the mother of the late Dan Markel. I stand before you today to express the profound sadness and grief that Dan's family and I have endured since his tragic murder. We have lost a treasure. My son Dan's life was cut tragically short at 41 years old. For 11 years, we have been forced to a life filled with unimaginable pain and heartbreak. Dan's father, Phil, and his sister, Shelley, share in this unending sorrow. Dan was a devoted father, brother, and son. Dan's life was marked by his devotion to family, education, and community. He was a loving, caring, and inspiring person.
And all Donna can think over there is poor me, poor me. She only cares about herself.
His academic journey included studying politics and philosophy at Harvard University, earning a master's degree later in political theory from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem and Emmanuel College in Cambridge, and later going back to Harvard to get a law degree. Dan was a prolific scholar and did start, co-founded the influential Prof's blog. His energy, drive, and sociability greatly enriched the FSU College of Law. Dan's life was filled with passion, music.
I love it. Donna gets the worst news of her life, and she's forced to sit here and listen about Ruth talk about what an amazing and accomplished person Dan Markel is. This is just, you deserve this, Donna.
Music, dance, sports, travel, and people. But of all my son's accomplishments, however, I am most proud of the devoted father Danny was to his two sons, Benjamin and Lincoln. Dan was present, loving, and supportive, always putting his children's well-being first. He regularly attended the boys' daycares, reading with them. His office was filled with their drawings, and his living room filled with their toys. Dan was the boys' hero, and they have been forced to grow up without a father. Dan's murder has shattered our family and caused deep, permanent pain. This was a particularly senseless crime, and the murder was particularly insensible. It was not revenge. Dan was a law-abiding and respectful citizen, an active father, and a living son. His life was devoted to teaching and helping others. The pain and suffering of Dan's murder goes well beyond other families too. That is why I wrote the book, The Unveiling, a mother's reflection on murder, grief, and trial life. In my unrelenting grief, I turned to advocacy, to feel purpose, and to help others with these tragic losses. I have found meaning and comfort to connect with others who want to serve justice. To all the community of journalists, TV programs, podcasters, Tallahassee communities, and the allies who have put their hearts in keeping Danny's story alive, we are full of thanks. To law enforcement and prosecutors, our gratitude is beyond for their dedicated, careful perseverance in seeking justice for Danny and our family. If Tallahassee is known for football, Tallahassee should be known for the prosecution and for law enforcement. They have done an outstanding job. These extraordinary efforts underscore the brutal truth of our family's story. Danny's murder was orchestrated by his former mother-in-law, Donna Adelson, and other co-conspirators, and is a crime of cruelty. It is a murder of grief, a murder of selfishly prioritizing one's own desires over what is just or right. And at its core, this was a murder of convenience, so that one grandmother could live closer to her grandchildren. She killed their father and ripped the children from the other grandparents' lives. Donna Adelson's crimes against Dan began long before his murder. She belittled...
You go, Ruth. Donna, you can't be shaking your head over there.
...down in front of his children. She spread lies about it and contributed to a brutal separation between Dan and Wendy. She rented the house, and Dan came home, and he found that Wendy and the boys were gone with most of their belongings. He called this devastation Pearl Harbor. Donna's eagerness for Wendy to divorce Dan and to relocate to South Florida led her to increasingly devise desperate schemes. Despite these efforts, the court ruled that Wendy could not move the boys away from their loving father. Failing to achieve her goal through legal means, Donna finally resorted to orchestrating Dan's murder. She plotted, planned, and paid for his murder. Donna's crimes led to further devastation. Her middle son, Charlie, was convicted and sentenced to a life in prison for his role in facilitating Danny's murder for hire. Can you imagine a mother involving a son to complete a murder? Donna's eldest son, Rob, an honest and decent man, is estranged from the family, and her younger child, Wendy, has decided once again to relocate to another state. Her actions and those of her co-conspirators have caused children to lose their parents. Catherine McManus, Freda Garcia, and Charlie Adelson, also convicted, are all convicted for life and have lost access to their children.
Yep.
Prior to her arrest, Donna's recorded phone calls with Charlie reveal their lack of a moral compass or capacity for self-reflection. She blames external forces for her family's curse. They're outside of her, but she is the curse, and lashes out angrily at witnesses who took the brave step to testify. Her modus operandi has always been to run from Tallahassee and then to try to flee to Vietnam. For our family, there is no such prospect.
Now she's stuck in Tallahassee. Well, I don't know where she's going to be in prison, though, but maybe somewhere close to Tallahassee.
For escape. Danny's absence, and that leaves a hole at the center of our lives, no matter where we go. Yet Dan's murder was not enough for Donna. His death was not enough. Danny had to be fully erased from his beloved sons. The boy's last name was ever changed, an extraordinary decision to excise the Markel name from Phil's only grandsons who shared his last name. And after the first arrests were made, Donna didn't allow the Markel family to have access for over 6 years. It was only when there was a phenomenal Tallahassee advocacy group that passed the Markel Act. The passage of this bill was immediately followed by our first invitation to see the boys after the arrest. The door only cracked open. Despite these efforts, we remain excluded from the boys' lives. We were not at their bar mitzvahs or graduations. We have extremely highly choreographed visits and communications. We only wait for the day that Benjamin and Lincoln will visit their father and his grave in his father's history and his grave in Toronto. We want nothing more. The facts of Danny's murder, are difficult to swallow. The experiences Phil, Shelley, and I have been forced to suffer are profound as homicide survivors and victims of the criminal system. The lives of Danny's 2 sons, our grandchildren, were forever turned upside down by this crime. Benjamin and Lincoln were only preschoolers when their father was murdered, and now they are forced to confront and try to understand the unthinkable crimes of murder and the Adelsons' involvement. Our lives will never return to normal. For those who loved Danny and for those who Danny loved, there is no escape from the wicked effects of what Donna Adelson set in motion, carried out, and paid for, and for many years enjoyed the aftermath of. Donna Adelson has caused immense devastation and an untimely, undeserved murder through her actions. While no trial or verdict can ever heal the profound wounds caused by Dan's murder, justice must be served. I respectfully ask the court to impose the maximum sentence on Donna Adelson. Her lack of cooperation and remorse throughout the case demands justice, the justice that Dan's life and memory fully deserve. We are immensely grateful to the court for its careful and compassionate deliberation. Respectively, Ruth Markel.
Oh, Ruth.
Are there any other victim impact statements this evening?
One more.
From Phil? Or maybe sister? Yay, Phil. This is Dan Markel's father. Good. Make Donna listen to both of them.
Tell us your name for the record.
Good evening. My name is Phil Markel. I'm Danny's father. Judge Everett, I appreciate the opportunity to speak about the impact of Donna Adelson's actions on my families and the families of so many others. While this victim impact statement is addressed to you, Your Honor, it is also intended for the Adelson family, Harvey, Charlie, Wendy, and particularly Donna. I would like them to understand and reflect on the deep and irreparable damage they have caused. The pain that they have caused my family is obvious and permanent, but they have also caused lifelong harm to their own immediate family and so many other families and children around. Donna's selfishness, cruelty, and complete disrespect for human life, along with that of her co-conspirators, have left families forever broken. Louis Rivera, his children have no father. Catherine Magbanoa and Sigfredo Garcia, their children have no parents. Charlie Adelson.
She's shaking her head because she doesn't care.
His son, Roman, has no father. Rob Adelson and his wife and their 2 children have lost their uncle and grandparents. Shelley and Ian, my daughter, their 3 children, my grandchildren, are left without an uncle and are separated from their cousins. Of course, their heinous and callous actions have left me, Ruth, and Shelley without our Danny, and Ben and Lincoln without their father. For anyone to commit such a cold-blooded, unprovoked act of murder is horrific. For Donna, someone who claims to care so much about Ben and Lincoln, her sun shines. Her actions are beyond comprehension. She has harmed forever the people she claims to have loved. In the Jewish custom, we have an expression to always wish others to live to 120 years of age. For Donna, I wish her to live to 120, alone in her jail cell. I wish that every day of her remaining days, she thinks about the harm she has caused to so many, especially those 2 boys she claims to have loved so much. For these reasons, Your Honor,
I hope they don't visit her in prison, but maybe they will. Maybe they will. Let her be alone forever, of all eternity.
I ask the court sentence Donna Adelson to the maximum possible sentence. And my only short question to Donna, was it worth it? Respectfully, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Markel.
Look at Donna. Look at Donna looking at Phil as he walks off. Oh my God, she looks so hateful.
Thank you, Mr. Markel. Are there any other matters that the court needs to address this evening, Ms. Koppelman? With the PSI being ordered, the court will pronounce the sentence as to counts 2 and 3 after it's been completed. The parties have had an opportunity to review the pre-sentence investigation report and make any objections if they believe they need to.
How long did the jury deliberate? I think 3 hours? 3 hours maybe?
As to the 3 counts that the jury has found,
Let me see. It started at 4, it's 7, 3, 2 to 3 hours.
the defendant guilty of, I will adjudicate her guilty at this time, but the sentence will be pronounced as to the 3 counts at a later date. She is remanded for sentencing at this time. Lieutenant Henry, please notify the commander at the jail that the appropriate screening needs to take place to ensure that the defendant is in an area where she is not subject to any self-harm.
Mm-hmm.
For a case management date coming up, what would the parties request?
Well, it's, oh my gosh, who made this? Look at this thumbnail. That scared the shit out of me. Defense Diaries made Donna Adelson into the Joker. a crazy, what a wild day. Donna Adelson trial. Every day was just getting crazier and crazier. So anyways, thank you so much for watching the trial with me. We live streamed this. We also did recap videos of the trial. We're also covering other trials as well. It's getting really late, but I just want to say, you know, I appreciate you guys being here. Please subscribe. We love to see you guys come back again. You know, stop by the live stream. And other than that, I will see you guys on a different case. We will do sentencing for Donna Adelson in about a month. So I will see you guys then. All right, y'all. See you later. Have a good weekend.